Hello, hello. This stupid camera. For some reason, the camera works fine until I'm streaming and then it lags way behind. So I got to do this square image for you. Sorry. Square. At least get the... Maybe I'll get a cool background for that. Thank you. It's Wednesday, 2:30 in the PM here in beautiful Pennsylvania. A little later than that, actually, 2:39. This will be a regularly scheduled live stream here on out. My work schedule finally got worked out. Barring any, the government deciding to shut down my work or something like that, which wouldn't have been thought possible a while ago. But here we are. Now you can hear me better. I'm not just in the car rambling like before. For those of you listening to podcasts, I do a little YouTube show when I'm in the car driving around just screaming about politics once in a while too. So don't worry, you're not missing much. So, yeah, thanks, Lori. Thanks for those of you who are here. I really appreciate it. This is going to be a regularly scheduled show. Around 2:30 every Wednesday will be a live stream. I'm going to be putting daily videos out, hopefully almost daily. I was a little slacked off this week, but you'll forgive me. I had a lot going on. I'll be able to talk. I got some things going on behind the scenes I'll be able to talk more about. But needless to say, my life's going in a very good direction, both my family life and also just stuff that's going on for the country. I think I'm more optimistic, as I'll get to in a minute here. And also just professionally, I think I got some things going on. So that's cool. And part of that, those of you that don't know, me and my friend Carlos, who's a friend of the show who comes on and talks to me a lot, he's kind of one of the people that's mentoring me in how to get involved in politics. He's been a political consultant. He's a great person. We have a show now on WEJS 104.1 Williamsport FM. It's going to be a talk show that's going to be every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern to 1 p.m. Eastern. We're lining up some great nationally renowned guests in addition to politicians in Pennsylvania and other people that we think will be relevant to the news stories of the day. That show, the focus of it's going to be very similar to this show. It's going to be liberty-minded. It's going to look at political news through the lens of our rights, the Constitution, and things like that. So I think you should tune into that. I have a video up that has a link to it, but as we go through this video today, I'll put the link to that up as well. So you can listen to WEJS anytime you want with the link I'll provide, but let's be honest, it's best when I'm on there. So yeah, so here I am. This is going to be a regular show. Another thing going on is a good friend of mine, Sarah Courier, and me are going to be doing shows 10 p.m. Eastern every Thursday. So check out her channel. She's got more subscribers than me, probably because she's smarter and more, he's got an accent to go with it, which everybody loves accents. So. But no, she's great. I think when you look back at the end of this, you'll see that there were some of us, and many of those people that I'm about to say are people I've worked with, that were skeptical of this virus in the first place and were extremely skeptical of shutting down the economy and taking away people's rights. Sarah was one of the best people on that as well, and so I'm happy to be working with her. I think she's a great voice. She's liberty-minded, and so that show is going to be every Thursday night at 10 p.m. Eastern on her channel. It might be on my channel once in a while. We'll see, but it's right now we're going to just do it on her channel. So, and then, of course, you always got me here on Wednesdays, and I might do live streams as the week goes on as well. So, I did not get the metrics on the stream for the show. I've heard from the producer that it did very well, far better than they anticipated for the first show, and I got mostly positive feedback. If you have feedback you would like to give, and I will share that feedback with Todd Bartley, who's kind of producer, and he's basically a co-host, even though he's not calling himself one, or Carlos Saldivia. I'll share that feedback with them, so feel free to email me at rob.nor@gmail with any criticisms, anything you think is going good with that radio show if you listen, any, we do have audio issues right now. Part of that's because we can't all be in the same place. Once this virus restrictions are lifted, then I think that'll clear up a lot of the audio issues as far as like volume and tone from the different microphones that we're using. But if you have any topics, any criticism, I know we're all long-winded, so that's another thing we're working on. So if you have any guest ideas, let us know. If you're someone, I had several people email me about being a guest. I have to tell you right now, I'm not someone who's I get input on what type of guests we'll have, but I certainly don't have final say. And being that we're a new kind of show coming out, we're trying to limit guests right now. So maybe once we're, got our feet dug in a little more and we're kind of more established, I'll be able to have guests. And by no means are we limiting ourselves to just have guests that are like, oh, this is someone with a prestigious title. We'd be willing to bring on any guest that has things to talk about, whether they agree with us or not, if it fits into the formatting of the show. So, with all that show note stuff out of the way, let's get to what I want to speak about today. So I think it's been a little depressing to talk about COVID as much as we have been. Now, it's understandable because it is the biggest violation of rights I've seen in my lifetime, possibly in the history of this country, sans, actually slavery, which of course was grotesque, or how about the Korematsu decision where we detained Japanese Americans, things like that, worse. But as far as a general one-size-fits-all approach to the entire country, this has to be up there, and certainly this is going to be one of the biggest economic shocks in the history of this country. So certainly it's something, it is the story it's worth talking about, but it gets depressing. So I'll be talking about it some today, probably more than I want anyways, but I thought let's do something more lighthearted. People are tired of hearing about their government collapsing their rights and collapsing their economy. Instead, let's lighten the mood by talking about your government engaged in a coup to overthrow the person that you duly elected president. Hey! That same intel agency that's bombing innocent people around the world, that's spending billions upon trillions of your dollars so that they could kick back in all sorts of money that goes to their family and friends. That group that Chuck Schumer told us that the most powerful elected ruler in the free world has to be frightened of, the deep state, the intel community. That group that really runs the show. Yay! A little more lighthearted today. Now, what I can't do, because I just got off work, is you'll be with me as I search some of the articles if I search them. But what I'm going to do, what I thought would be worthwhile, and this might be boring for long-term viewers of me, but I hope not. I mean, am I ever boring? I don't think so. Is go through and look at each of these situations that we've seen since the election of Donald Trump. And each of the individual stories that talk about, the corruption, this proves that something was going on. And we'll now be able to show, as I have been for 2 years now, but I'll be able to show even more based on things that are becoming available to us in the past couple weeks, just how ridiculous this was and how it was a coup or sedition from the get-go. Now, before I start, I know I said this wasn't going to be focused on COVID, but if you checked out my roadside rambling on the way here, let me just give a brief synopsis, as if it's possible for me to talk briefly. What I was saying is this. How does this coup tie into what we're seeing with the COVID? The truth is that me and yours voices haven't mattered for 30 plus years, possibly longer than that. I'm 35. I read stories of how things were, before my lifetime and things like that. But certainly in my lifetime, our voices barely matter. There are people that run the government that aren't us. You could call it the shadow government. That has to do, there's slight differences. My friend Milo would be able to tell you more about the idea of the shadow government, which entails kind of like the intelligence apparatus versus the deep state. The deep state would be more of you're lumping in like lobbyists, your Gates type people, oligarch type people that are influencing the mainstream media would be involved in the deep state and things like that. Regardless of what you want to call these organizations, what it is, it's the people that really run the show in this country. When I use the term deep state, I'm talking about the intel company or the intel agencies. I'm talking about unelected bureaucrats like Vindman, Yovanovitch. We saw testify against Trump. They're from the State Department. It could be people in the IRS. It could be people in any of these agencies, the EPA. They're unelected. They were appointed by the president. Those sorts of bureaucrats, they're part of that deep state, most of them. The Democratic Party, they're part of the deep state because they're just propagandists that go hand in hand with the agencies that I just told you about. People like Bill Gates and these oligarchs and people like George Soros, that their money, and other lobbyists, there's certainly many more of them, and their money is controlling the direction that our governmental policies go. The mainstream media that are just at this point mouthpieces for the organizations that I just talked about. Academia is part of that. The entertainment industry is part of that. Silicon Valley is part of that. Now, everyone in all of these organizations, no. When I talk about the Democrats, does that mean all the Republicans are good? Of course not. Look at John McCain. Look at Paul Ryan. Look at Mitt Romney. And there's many more. So it's a charade that's put forth to us. They pretend that they're disagreeing on issues, but the issues that they disagree on are things that are irrelevant to them consolidating power. Like gay rights. Do you think they care about gay rights? You think they care about abortion? They don't. It's just things that we are left out here to argue about. Well, they could pretend they're bitter enemies and they're all smoking cigars laughing that we think that our voice matters. And I've said this on the show from day one. I want to reach people on the left and the right. Make no bones about that I'm biased. I'm from the right. In fact, I'm Republican. I ran as a Republican. I still believe in the ideals of what the Republican Party is supposed to represent. And there are good Republican politicians. And there are Republican politicians that mean well, but I just find ineffectual. There are probably some good Democrat politicians, but at this point, the people running the Democratic Party, there's no excuse that I could ever vote Democrat again, as long as that same leadership's there. You know, the people that told us guilty until proven innocent with Kavanaugh, that smeared the Covington kids while they defended adult racists, that are actively cheering against possible cures for this virus, such as hydrochloroquine. Yeah, I can't be bothered to ever vote for one of them. Am I saying that my friend that's a Democrat down the street, that he's a terrible person? No. Am I saying that my friend that helped run my campaign when I ran for Congress, who's a Democrat, is a terrible person? No. We can have disagreements. I would love to get back to a point where there wasn't all of this corruption and we could actually have policy disagreements. That would be amazing. But what I say all the time, because I'm trying to reach everyone that's willing to listen, and I understand there are good people that could be Democrat, your neighbor that's a Democrat, whatever. Again, the leadership, no, they're terrible. So I think we should all come together, because the truth of it is this. What is your big issue? Maybe you're on the left and your big issue is climate change, or you're pro-choice, or you're pro-gay rights. Maybe you're on the right and your issue is pro-Second Amendment or pro-free speech. None of those issues matter if we don't have a government that is able to be a voice for us, because there are unelected officials and media people and oligarchs that are really making the decisions. So regardless if you're on the left or the right, the first step to anything matter is getting this corruption outed. And that rears its ugly head again with this COVID shutdown. Why has the shutdown been so devastating? Why has it been allowed to go on as long as it has? Because once more, Trump has trusted deep state people that are around him. Now, I don't blame Trump. It's very difficult. Let me give you an example. I used to sit up late at night because I'm such a nerd and watch videos of the committees that Trey Gowdy was on and think, man, Trey Gowdy, what an animal. He just tears these people apart. And he did. That was entertainment for me. And I trusted Trey Gowdy to, even if I didn't agree with him on everything politically, I trusted him as being someone who justice and fairness mattered. And he would get to the bottom of things like Benghazi, or more importantly, the FBI abuse in the Trump-Russia situation. Instead, he comes out in 2018 and says, I've seen the documents. The FBI is doing exactly what Americans would want them to do. Christopher Wray and Rod Rosenstein are good people. And then he gets interviewed on Tucker the other night and he's like, oh, I made a mistake. After I actually saw the documents. My mistake was listening to the FBI. How is it that some fat guy sitting on a chair with no connections, that's never made more than $15 an hour until this year, barely making over $15 an hour, living paycheck to paycheck, that's just got one of the cheapest cameras he could afford, a microphone that his friends sent him, and a cheap laptop? How could I figure it out? And by the way, hundreds of thousands of other people that don't have these connections. We figured it out. We saw the corruption. Heck, all he had to, Trey Gowdy could have watched my show, and he could have saw the corruption from the FBI. But instead, he had access to the physical documents that we now know proved that there was corruption. Yet, he refused to acknowledge him. And what happened as a result of that? In 2018, I could show you on message boards that I was in places like Above Top Secret, or you could see it on Twitter or on Facebook, or you could turn on CNN, or you could open the New York Times, all of those places. All of these people that just kind of want to cheer for the establishment and the Democratic Party, over and over they said, even Trey Gowdy, who was like, the big Benghazi guy, even he admits that the FBI's on the up and up. It's un-American to criticize the FBI. You're jeopardizing sources and methods if you criticize the FBI. Even Trey Gowdy says the FBI is legitimate. Good job, Trey Gowdy. Great. You just gave a propaganda win to the very people engaged in the coup against this country. Great. And now you want to go on Tucker and say, oh, my bad, it was just a little mistake. Have a seat, buddy. So yeah, I fell for that. I'm not infallible. I make mistakes all the time. And I would forgive Trey Gowdy if he asked for forgiveness and proved that he could do the right thing again. But I wouldn't put him in charge of anything. He dropped the ball in the biggest political scandal in the history of this country. He was one of the very few people that claimed to be for justice, that had access to the evidence. And instead of reading that evidence and coming to the proper conclusion, he gave a propaganda victory for the very people engaged in the coup. But I trusted him to an extent. So I understand Trump's in a tough spot. The deep state is very thorough. It's hard to find. And the other thing is they've made the game for themselves because the deep state's been in charge of these positions so often and so long. It's difficult to find someone who's qualified on paper outside the deep state to do these things. Flynn was one of them. You saw what happened to him. So he surrounds himself with people like John Bolton, a neocon warhawk that I could have predicted from the get-go was going to push Trump to going to disastrous wars and try to bomb places like Syria. You can't blame Trump for knowing that that's how insidious these people are and that's how dug in they are. They're everywhere. It'd be hard to know who to trust. But the buck does stop with Trump. He picked those people. So I understand, right, that I don't think my gut feeling, I don't have proof of this, but, people ask me, why is Trump criticizing Sweden? Why is Trump criticizing Georgia about this lockdown? I think it's because he's trusting the people around him, and those are bad people. But maybe not. Maybe Trump is a bad person. I don't believe that, but it's a fair question to ask. And at the end of the day, how much does it matter? If it results in collapsing the economy and us losing our rights, does it matter if it was because Trump himself wanted that to happen or because he mistakenly trusted people that made those decisions for him, like Dr. Fauci? It's a serious question. And it's a question that I've raised here and gotten a lot of heat and lost most of my subscribers. I used to have like 40, 50 people watching a video. Now I got 15, 20. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. I'm not going to pull my punches just because I think my side's doing something. Again, I'm speaking up because I think if enough of us speak up, that you'll start to see our leaders be forced to make liberty-minded decisions, particularly the Republicans. They get away with it as long as we say, yeah, we're okay with you spending $3 trillion. We're okay with you doing all this stuff that was on the agenda of the Democratic Party. As long as we say that's okay, they're going to keep doing it. If we rise up and say this is unacceptable, then even if it's just to keep their phony baloney jobs, in the words of, the governor in Blazing Saddles, then maybe they'll make the right decision. Trump bashed Sweden last week. He said Sweden made a huge mistake. He's tweeted about it several times. Trump continues to push the 2.2 million American deaths from the debunked Imperial College model. So, right, and Pat Acker, here's my interpretation, right? And this is what I finished my roadside ramble by saying was this. The Democrats, I think, didn't expect to lose in 2016. In fact, don't even look at it as Democrats. Look at it as the deep state. So John McCain and Mitt Romney, they wanted Hillary to win. And so it was like, as long as they know they're going to win, they don't care who the opposition was, right? They would prefer to have been Jeb Bush versus Hillary Clinton. Then they win either way. But okay, this whippersnapper Trump comes along, this outsider, and he rocks the boat. Hillary says, that's okay, we'll kill him in a landslide. Kill him. So the media pushes Trump, pushes Trump, pushes Trump, pushes Trump. He wins the primary, and then they're all against Trump. That's what they did. And they assumed we'll win. Their hubris was their downfall. Right? So that's what was going on. So they immediately go into plan B. Okay, they're already spying on Trump and everything like that before the election because that's what they do, because they're corrupt. And so they're like, okay, we'll just have never-ending investigations. We'll try to impeach him. We'll try to get any dirt we can on him whatsoever. We'll either get him out of office through an impeachment or something, or we'll hold up his administrative goals by having investigation after investigation after investigation and make him so unpopular he loses in 2020. And they've been largely successful in that endeavor. Much of Trump's agenda has not been put through, such as we haven't got as much as the wall we wanted. We haven't been able to investigate corruption from the previous administration as much as we should, etc. And it's because constantly the Republicans are playing defense and they're saying, oh, well, once the Mueller investigation's over, listen to Lindsey Graham. Maria Baratoma asked him the other day, she's like, Mr. Graham, you keep saying over and over, oh, we're going to have investigations. We're going to have investigations into the Bidens and Burisma. We're going to have investigations into what was going on with these FISA abuses, yet none haven't. No grand juries. What's the deal with that? You're the person who can make this happen in the Senate. And he says, oh, well, rule of law, and we can't, we have to wait until these things are done, and, I can't just snap my fingers, and while the Mueller, we had to leave these investigations play through. What's your plan, Lindsey? Leave the Democrats investigate Trump for 8 years, and then afterwards start to look into it? Great plan! Sounds like someone who's really interested in getting to the bottom of corruption, doesn't it? But that's the Republicans constantly playing defense. So all of this crap goes on, and the Democrats have been largely successful, but it was looking bad 2020. What did I do? I warned Republicans I told you on this show, go back 4 to 6 months, and I was saying this. The number one thing that concerned me was hearing so many Republicans saying, oh, Trump's going to win 48 out of 50 states. It's going to be a landslide. No one the Democrats are running can even touch him. And I was like, that's the same sort of arrogance that cost Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. And don't underestimate how corrupt the deep state is. They'll use the media. They'll use the academia, entertainment industry, Silicon Valley. They'll take things off YouTube. They'll smear Trump. They'll bring out sexual assault allegations. They'll intentionally collapse the economy. Those were all things that I said. And I knew that those sorts of shenanigans, we're just at the tip of the iceberg. Wait until you see what they bring out the rest of this election. My prediction is still that Joe Biden won't be the final nominee. That eventually, you heard it here first, eventually they'll say, well, we're letting go of Biden, and we did the right things. Us Democrats did the right things. That proves that we believe in Me Too. Unlike the Republicans, now Trump should resign. Trump should back up because there's accusations against him as well. That's what they'll try to do. I don't know who they'll put in, Cuomo or Hillary, Michelle Obama. Who knows? But that's my prediction. We'll see. I could be wrong. That's what I think will happen. But nonetheless, we see that that's where it's heading. I saw, and I think many people did, I don't think I'm uniquely a genius in this, that it wasn't going to be as easy as it seemed. What if the Democrats are pulling out all these stops, but they're still worried they might not win the election? So their impeachment fell through, all of their smears fall through, and they still might not win the election. And at this point, once the impeachment stuff and the FISA Russia collusion stuff starts to come out, it's going to be real hard for them to go back to that well for the fifth time and say, no, this time the FBI has evidence that Trump really did something wrong. Once evidence of the FBI corruption is made public, that's going to be a tough sell. So what if they did this? What if they said, okay, we're still going to try to win. We're still going to do everything that we've been doing. But here's a new plank of our platform. What if we convince Trump and the Republican allies that he has that aren't deep state people, what if we convince them to do everything we want, but have them and their supporters think it's their idea? Now, this isn't a new play. This is exactly what happened with the anti-war movement after the Iraq War. You had all this media that came out with egg on their face saying, we're sorry, we should have questioned the intel agencies more. Our bad, it won't happen again. And yet it continued to happen. It never stopped. There was an anti-war movement. I wasn't part of that anti-war movement. I was on the right. There were a lot of people on the left in that anti-war movement. I remember going to concerts, punk against Bush. Bush lied, people died. Dick Cheney's a war criminal. That's what these people were saying. Bruce Springsteen was rocking about how war was bad. All these celebrities, oh, we're fed up. Michael Moore was producing documentaries. Woo! Seemed to be not to the level of Vietnam, but there was this anti-war movement brewing. So what does the deep state do? They're like, here's what we'll do. Let's get a attractive, well-spoken, charming black man. What a great story. First black president. And he'll be left-wing. And he'll claim to be the man of peace. He's a man of peace. And we'll get him elected, and then we'll just keep doing the exact same wars. Exact same. In fact, he'll drop more bombs than any president in history. That's what we'll do. He'll overthrow a country like Libya for no reason. Just because they dared to suggest that the US dollar wouldn't back their oil anymore. And that's what they did. Hell, they gave him the Nobel Peace Prize. Remember Bruce Springsteen rocking against Obama? All the punk bands, were they rocking against Obama? Hollywood? Were they putting out videos about Obama being a war criminal? Huh. That anti-war movement just went away. Isn't that unusual? Now, once Trump got back in, now it was vogue to criticize war and bombing and stuff again. Now, by the same token, why wouldn't that apply to people on the other side of the aisle? Yeah, the Tea Party, they were all about deficits being bad, right? Here's what we'll do. We'll put forth people that sound like they're the biggest Tea Party people of all. And then once they get in office, they'll blow up the deficit. Now, I'm not saying Trump was a plant like that, but he's listening to people that are. His debt's going to be outrageous. Remember, we already have the $2 trillion bill, plus billions elsewhere, plus $6 trillion in Fed liquidity, which basically means the Fed just printed $6 trillion more dollars. Now they're talking about a new $3 trillion bill, and that's still not the end of it. So we're well over $10 trillion just dealing with COVID. And we're still got to do the rest of the federal budget that we always do. What about the globalist agenda of making people rely on the government? Hey, what if we have Trump and Republicans push policies for a lockdown that make people not able to work and become, now through no choice of their own, reliant on the government? There's a big Democrat agenda. They lay it out in the Green New Deal. Bam, instituted. Signed off on by Republicans and Trump. What if we collapse the economy? The economy is one of Trump's strong suits going into 2020. What if we collapse it? Bam, done. Signed off on by Republicans and Trump. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Wait until you see this bill they're pushing now in the House, Nancy Pelosi's bill, that gives amnesty, that gives money to encourage more immigrants to come, that gives money based on racial demographics and gender demographics, that gives money to lobbyists. That's what they're pushing now, and much of it will come through. Signed off by Republicans and Trump. Now, I know people will say, but they control the House. What were they supposed to do? They could have all voted against it, and Trump could have refused to sign it. That's what they could have done. Or better yet, they could have not pushed for the lockdown in the first place. Then the economy wouldn't have collapsed, which I don't understand this argument people will make. Well, they have to do something. What are you going to do? Just leave, you can't just leave these small business owners out there. Here's what you do. Let them go to work. Oh, I collapsed the economy. Now you have to let me spend trillions of dollars to help you out. No. Again, am I saying this was Trump's goal to collapse the economy? No, but he listened to people whose goal that was. That's what's occurred. And Trump's criticized places that didn't lock down. Trump's criticized Georgia. He criticized Sweden. The guy that he put in charge, Dr. Fauci, is still the lead voice for the lockdown, the lead propagandist. Trump has the ability to stop that anytime he wants. He doesn't. Trump talked to governors that locked down like Newsom and Cuomo and said they were doing a great job. And then he criticized governors like the governor of Georgia that didn't lock down. Trump's had federal things locked down and federal programs and policies and places locked down. They have official guidelines that suggest lockdowns that they are hoping that states follow. Are the Democrats better than Trump? No. But if we, as Trump supporters, just like with the Second Amendment stuff, Trump wasn't big on the Second Amendment stuff until Trump supporters started to show, no, this is important. Then Trump became more involved in it. Trump's not this incredible, I think he's a smart guy. I think he means well, I do. But he's not a super genius, like, on the level of, I don't know, who's this, like Professor X or something? Was Professor X even that smart, or was it just because he could, like, listen to people's inner thoughts? Because that could artificially make you, whatever. So, I don't think he's, like, some ridiculous super genius. Of course, he's not an epidemiologist. He's going to listen to people around him. But if we show this is unacceptable, then Trump would be like, oh, my base, who I trust, the great America, and I think that is something that's legitimate about Trump. I think, and this is just an opinion, I could be wrong, but it seems to me Trump actually cares about working class people. So if he sees working class people saying enough is enough, then he might change his mind. And I had Trump supporter after Trump supporter after Trump supporter tell me, shut your mouth, Rob. How dare you criticize Trump's policy? Of course we need to lock down. If we don't lock down, old people will die. You care more about your 401k than old people. The Constitution's just a piece of paper. We need to suspend it when it comes to all of us dying from this virus. I had Trump supporters, one after another, telling me that. And so, This is what you get. You get that Democrat bill that's coming forth. Enjoy your mail-in voting and Democrats winning now throughout all history. Enjoy all that amnesty that comes for the illegals. Good job. Hey, we have to do it. We're all going to die of the virus, right? So how does this tie into what I'm talking about today? And yes, if you're new, why is this fat guy yelling? I do. Trust me. It's just the way I talk. But I am angry. I really am. I think we should all be more angry. Much of the damage has been done. Again, just real quick. What was the biggest threat that could end our country? Was it this virus? No, it wasn't. Was it the economy? It's going to be way worse than the virus. It might take 15 years to get back to where we are now, where we were before the virus economically. Millions of people losing their livelihoods now becoming dependent on the government. But we can make it through that. As horrific as it's going to be. But what we can't make it through is setting the precedent that anytime the government says, with basically no proof, just, well, we're guessing, but we think a bunch of people could die because of X, so we need to take your rights away and take the economy away and spend trillions of dollars. Once we set that precedent, that's it. That's the end of the country. They will use that power over and over. There is no power that once you give to the federal government that they're not going to exploit over and over and over again. And we gave that consent. We got our butts kicked. And I've said that. But I'm the type of person that I don't look at a loss and say, well, that's it, we lost. We did. We got crushed. I was arrogant. I had hubris. I thought people are waking up. They're seeing through this charade. They're seeing through the fear-mongering. They're seeing the media's lies. And I was wrong. The majority of Americans, I truly believe, supported the lockdown initially. It was a huge mistake. I think many of them are waking up now and saying, wow, this was a huge mistake. But they supported it. And they'll support it again next time when the lies come. Maybe a handful less will, but they'll still support it. And after it's done again and again and it becomes the new norm and it's generational, it'll start to infect us just like things like, how many people are afraid to say in public men are different than women? Or all these lies that we have to pretend. Here's a lie we have to pretend. We have to pretend that white people are running around like and hunting black people like LeBron James says. Even though the data shows us that it's actually black people kill whites more than whites kill blacks. And actually, even that's not a big deal. Predominantly, people kill people within their own race. So I also think it's fear-mongering for people saying blacks are killing whites at, incredible clips. And more than whites are killing blacks, but still, more whites are killing whites and more blacks are killing blacks. But that doesn't bring up the whole, racial animus that they're looking for. So no one wants to talk about that. So we just have to pretend, whites killing black. We have to pretend if you're a woman or a minority and you're a politician, it's a huge, huge, huge obstacle for you. When the exact opposite's true, we all know it. We know it. I just got done. I've been talking about this show. I just watched all 5 seasons of The Wire. It's on Amazon Prime. One of the greatest shows ever written. So much relevant today. I mean, that show started, I think, in 2003. So much relevant today. And one of the things from season 3 to 5, it focuses on Baltimore mayoral and gubernatorial election. And they just say in it, like, it's absolutely known. They're like, hey, it's Baltimore. The city's predominantly black. You're facing a huge uphill battle running for office if you're not black. They know it. And, granted, it's fiction, but there's truth in that fiction. Everybody knows that. And we know that it helped. Yes, were there probably some racists that voted against Obama because he is black? I'm sure. I'm guessing there weren't many people that were like, I'm a Democrat, and I'm going to vote for the Democrat. Oh, wait, he's black? No, never mind. I'm guessing there weren't many of those people, but sure, maybe a handful. But I bet there was far more people that said, I'm voting for him because he is black. But we have to pretend that's not the case. We just have to pretend. We have to pretend that, look, religions, when it comes to violence and religions, they're all equal. When we all know there's only one that you can't draw pictures of their deity, right? There's only one that you have to be afraid criticizing or you could get slaughtered. But we have to pretend. And it'll be like that. It'll just be a new generational thing like that. We have to pretend when the government says, hey, you're all going to die unless we take your rights. We'll say, well, I don't want to get arrested like in Britain for criticizing the government. Or we don't have to arrest you. We'll just deperson you. Twitter and YouTube will kick you off. That's where we're heading. Because we allowed these corrupt people. They kept throwing things. What about terrorism? No, that's not scaring people now. Climate change. No, that's not scaring. Trump's a Russian. No, that's not working. Disease. Oh, we got one? Yeah, disease. Yeah, that's the big thing. Disease. Yep. That's what happened. And if you don't think climate change is coming next, you got another thing coming. As soon as the Democrats get any kind of power whatsoever, they're declaring an emergency on climate change. And they're going to shove through the rest of their crap. And when we call it out, when we say this is garbage, they're going to take a bunch of Trump people and Trump supporters, and they're going to say, oh, really? Here's what you said about the Bill of Rights when we were worried about COVID. You had no problem suspending them then. Heck, you believe the World Health Organization. You believe the CDC. You believe the Imperial College. Guess who's giving all the numbers on how many people climate change will kill? The Imperial College, the World Health Organization, places like the CDC. That's what they'll do. They'll say you trusted them about COVID. Why not now? Right, Steve. The government telling us to wear masks are the same people that told us with a nuclear bomb or a tornado to get under your desk in school. Heck, it's worse than that. Imagine this, that the government came out at the height of the Cold War and was like, whatever you do, don't get under your desk. That's nonsense. Getting under your desk won't help at all. And then a month later, they're like, it's now illegal not to get under your desk if there's a bomb alert. That's what they did. Or the guy running the show saying, look, there's no chance. We don't have to be Cold War. We don't have to be worried about the Soviets. No chance. Americans shouldn't worry about the Soviets whatsoever. And then a month later saying, we could never go back to normal life because of the Soviets. That's what Dr. Fauci did. Because he was telling us in January, we don't have to worry about this virus. And now he's telling us today, we can't open up schools in fall. We don't know if life will ever go back to normal. That's the guy we're listening to. Or his buddy Neil Ferguson that told us all that we're immoral and scumbags and risking millions dead if we don't voluntarily submit to a lockdown and if the governments don't enforce it, and then got infected with the virus and then went out and banged his mistress. That's who we need to listen to. You know, the same guy that said 15 million people would die of bird flu in the UK, and then from 2003 to 2008, 177 died, that guy. Or who was responsible for 6 million heads of cattle and sheep being executed in 2002 because foot and mouth disease was going to kill tens of thousands, and then it killed 288 people. Or his prediction that came to H1N1 where he had similar numbers and said tens of thousands would die and it ended up being in the hundreds in the UK. But that's who we have to listen to. Trust the experts. Trust him and Fauci. That's right, Steve Clark. They're getting a lot of their... It's like they don't even hesitate. You knew it. Like, I did videos back here when the first draft of the Green New Deal came out. Go back and check it out. My comments on the Green New Deal. I went through that deal, and I showed everyone. And you could look up any version of it. Maybe 3% of that whole bill has anything to do with climate change. What does paying people who don't feel like working, which was literally in the first draft, what does that have to do with climate change? What does paying people based on their racial demographics have to do with climate change? None of it. None of it had to do with it. Now comes COVID. Whoop! Just insert that crap in. Now it's about fighting disease. Same crap. Isn't that nifty how that worked out for them? And who went right along with it? The Republicans. Again, so I'm talking more about COVID than I wanted to. As always, but it is the big story. How did this come to be? Because we don't have a voice. Again, it's maybe cynical, but I truly believe that, and here's what I think is going on. It's an amalgamation of these sorts of things going on. The first is the people really at the top level, the deep state people. They want a collapse of America's middle class because they want to usher in globalism. It's what Soros wants. It's what Gates wants. It's what Zuckerberg wants. It's what the Intel community wants. It's what your Schumers and your Pelosi's wants. That's what they want. They want globalism. Their dream society is a society without borders that is modeled after San Francisco or LA, where we live with dope fiends in the street, with needles laying in the street, people defecating in the street, in squalor. And they'll give us breadcrumbs, and they'll provide amusement, just like the old Roman Colosseum days. They'll give us entertainment and breadcrumbs. Sure. As long as we worship them. As long as we bend the knee to them and tell them how great they are. As soon as we don't, as soon as we criticize it, well, then you're shut off. And you no longer have the ability to be self-sufficient because they control everything and have shut down your ability to, I don't know, just go to work for yourself and, like America, the experiment was intended to be, based on your personal responsibility and personal liberty. The government was in charge of, defense, some fail-safe stuff. That was about it. But you basically were responsible for your own life. They want the opposite. They'll be mommy or daddy, But once you live in mommy and daddy's house, you got to follow mommy and daddy's rules. That's what they want. And they'll live on their castles while we live in squalor. That's what they want around the globe. They're special, and you can see it. That's why when they suggest all this stuff for you, when you see the socialists, the Bernies, or the Democrats suggest things for you, it doesn't even strike them. But wait a minute, you don't follow your own rules. Right? Open borders for you, gated communities for them. No guns for you, armed guards for them. Your light bulb's a problem. You left your lights on too long and you're harming the environment as I fly in my private jet to my third lake house. They don't get it. You could listen when they're talking about illegal immigration. Go to like Alyssa Milano's Twitter feed. You could see what they really think. Who would clean my toilets? Who would landscape my yards if not for illegal immigrants? Yes, that's what you want. Obedient workers, serfs. That's what you want. The price of my fruit would go through the roof without illegal immigration. Yes, God forbid that you have to pay a little more for your convenience. Or God forbid even further that you actually have to do some sort of manual labor. Oh, perish the thought. Or how about the mayor of Chicago who shut down hair salons and then got caught in a hair salon? But check out the video. She's blatant. She doesn't even try to hide it. She's like, yeah, I did that. Why? Because I'm the face of Chicago. I'm in front of all these cameras. And I take my hygiene seriously. That's what she said. I'm not one to hit a woman. I'm not one to hit anyone, pretty much. I deplore violence. It's particularly of the political nature. I don't know how that woman walked out of that room without eating a couple haymakers. So what, we don't care about our hygiene? It never even crossed her mind. Oh, I'm being a huge hypocrite. They view themselves as so different than us, they don't even realize. They can't even fake it anymore. It's just, yeah, we're different people than you. You suck. You exist to serve us. That's what it is. And they detest the idea that you could live without them. Nah, I could just own a small business or go to work and, feed my family. Basically, what I want from government is to not have it be involved in my life. They detest that. They need control over your life. They're better than you. That's what it's about. That's what their dream is. Now, is that what every single Democrat, even the state and local level, are doing? No. Or the Republicans? There's a lot of that crap going on. But I also think there's other things going on. I think that there's a lack of leadership. And when I criticize the Republicans, this is a lot of what I'm talking about. I think that they probably in their gut was like, oh, I got questions about this virus. I hesitate destroying the economy. I hesitate taking away people's rights. But you don't want to be the nail left standing because then you get hammered. So they looked around. I'm just going to do whatever. I'm worried about my next election. I don't want to stick out and have the media come after me, so I'll do what everyone else says. What's that? What is it? It's lockdown. Yeah, lockdown. Yeah, lockdown. Yeah, let's lock that. That's what's the county next door? Yeah, we're gonna lock down. I'm the Republican, leader of a county. I'm gonna do what my Democrat governor says. We'll just go along to get along. That's the safest thing to do. And then there was people that went further than that. They had to virtue sign. Oh, you're shutting down for 2 months? We're shutting down for 3 months. We care more. We're virtue signaling that we care more about people dying. Yep, we care the most. We're shutting down LA County. We're going to shut down for 3 more months. Bam. We don't care. We don't care what the official regulations are. We'll shut down forever. We'll never leave our house because we care more than you. So in both of those instances, it's a lack of leadership. And I'm convinced this is why one of the messages I'm trying to reach to people is run for office yourself. Local, state, federal, run for office. One of the things I learned running for office is there are people, you will have a disadvantage if you don't have the money, if you don't have the connections, right? All of that stuff. But what most of our politicians are good at is running for office. They're not more qualified than you generally to actually be effective once they're in office. They're just good at running for office. They're good at making promises and exploiting the media, knowing how to message and hiring the right consulting firm and getting their message out there. Once they got the position, it's like, well, I don't want to be a leader. I'm just going to... My job, this is how most politicians think of it, I think. My job is to get elected again. Not to lead, not to do what's right. If I was in a position, if I would have won that congressional seat, I would have came out immediately and been like, this lockdown is heinous. I don't care if Trump's suggesting it or the Republicans or McConnell or anyone suggesting it's wrong. They should have to answer all sorts of questions before they take our rights away. Collapsing the economy is not the answer. And if this costs me my next election, so be it. My job isn't to look forward to, well, what will get me elected? It's to say, what is the right thing to do for my constituents in my country? Who do we have that's doing it? Who's been a voice of leadership? Instead, now you're starting to see some Republicans come out like they're crawling out, Smeagol or something, crawling out of a cave looking at the sun like, oh, it's the polling numbers? People are upset about the shutdown? Yeah, we're upset about the shutdown too. Really? Where were you when it mattered? And by the way, it's not just politicians. It's media people. It's independent content creators like me. It's people on Twitter. How many of them attacked me or people like me that said this right out of the gate? Oh, but this virus is different. And blah, 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 blah. That's how you know the merits of someone. I liken it to like this because I'm a nerd. Like, I like sports, so it's like baseball. Clayton Kershaw, the guy every year is a dominant pitcher. But then he gets to the postseason and he chokes. It doesn't matter if when things are going good, you're saying and doing the right things. It's when life gets challenging. What do you do then? What do you do when the stakes are at their highest? When there are no stakes, when it's just like, yeah, I say what I want. Fine. Yeah, it's easy to say the right thing. But when it could personally cost you, what did you do? Well, secretly I had reservations about the lockdown, but because Trump said about it, I can't criticize Trump because I could lose followers. Okay, that's fine. That's one thing that's great about me. I got nothing to lose. I make next to nothing on this. I got 4 great Patreons, and I have people once in a while that'll give me a super chat, for some money. And it's been incredibly helpful, and I've got some equipment. And I'm still going to beg for money and stuff because I'm a schlub, so I'll do that in the future. But I'm not going to sacrifice. If one of my patrons said, I don't like that you criticize Trump, so I'm done, I would say, hey, thanks so much for the support you gave me. It's fair enough. That's your right. I'm not going to change who I am. If I get elected to office, I'm not going to change who I am. I just don't care. And if that's your concern, I've had people say that to me about, well, the reason Trump went along with this was he would have got skewered by the media and it would have hurt his election chances. Every death they would have blamed on Trump. And it would have really harmed him. He would have had to fight that the whole way up to the election. If Trump's made one decision, it's fine for Trump to sit around with this team and say, what are the poll numbers? Messaging wise, what can I do? If Trump's made one decision of relevance regarding COVID that he wouldn't have otherwise made because it helped or harmed his election chances, that's a huge failure in leadership. Huge. And that's true of my Democrat Governor Tom Wolf. That's true of everyone, Republican or Democrat. If you're making a decision and saying, hey, I think this decision could help my poll numbers, but it was the decision I was going to make anyways, fine, I don't mind you looking at those poll numbers. But if you've changed your mind, if you said, this is what I think is right, but I'm going to do something else because I am afraid what I think is right will harm my election chances, that's a failure of leadership. That's in my opinion, what that would be. And I don't see that leadership. Instead, I see people saying, oh, did you see this election, the special election for Katie Hill's seat in California yesterday? Hey, thanks, Pat. At least I keep someone saying, I'm driving my wife crazy. But, yeah, it's great. The Republican won that seat in California that Hillary won by 11 points. That is great. But again, what does that mean? I'm less concerned. And I'm saying this as a Republican who volunteers for the Republican Party, who ran as a Republican. The letter next to your name means less than me than what are the actual beliefs you have. What are the politics that you have? If Republicans win in a landslide, but it costs them spending trillions of dollars and basically becoming a socialist party, then it's not worth it. Just like, ask your Democrat friends, if you go back, I was in college, but all these left-wing friends, I would love to ask them. Okay, you won in 2008. You beat the Republicans, you beat John McCain. So your big issue was anti-war, right? So you won, but then the wars continued and everything went apace. Was it worth it? Or would you have rather had a politician that actually would have been against the war? So that's where I'm at on this corruption. Where is the leadership? Don't just say, hey, my representative's a Republican. He came out and said we need to get back to work eventually. So, yeah, run against that person. That's terrible. That's a horrible lack of leadership. So, and maybe, look, there are also those that said the right thing. I've heard by my friend Billy Allred on here that Fred Keller, the guy that beat me, was quite vocal right out of the gate that the lockdown was a mistake. I haven't been able to find that. I haven't looked that hard. But if that's true, great. But you could have been more vocal. I mean, that's the problem. Republicans talk in their own circle, but they don't know how to use social media. They don't know how to use the media to get the message out there. They just talk amongst their own circles. We should have been shouting to the heavens like I was. I want my politicians screaming as much as me, as PO'd as I am. You don't have to be as crazy as me, I guess. But get angry, you know? So that's what the coup's led to with COVID. So let's talk about the coup. I spent an hour talking about COVID and I said I wasn't going to talk about it. Good job, Rob. So I'm not going to have the links for you today, but they're out there. And maybe I'll put a short video together with the links so that you can actually see. But I want to talk about the steps that led to the Russia hoax and how this proves the coup and what was going on. And so there were several characters and phases that went into this, and I think it's worth talking about them. So where I want to start first, even though it's not chronologically the beginning of this, is the Mueller report. Because what we were told was, even though the Mueller report was unable to criminally refer, in fact, it specifically said, as Barr said, that they found nobody in Trump's campaign, in fact, no American, had actively worked with Russia to conspire to affect the 2016 election in a legal way. That's blatantly what the Mueller report says. Now, there were questions of whether or not there was obstruction of justice, but I'm not going to get into that whole debate. The idea was, did Trump obstruct an investigation into a crime that he didn't commit? It was nonsense from the get-go. Now, what we were told, though, about the Mueller investigation was, well, there was all sorts of evidence of collusion, but it didn't rise to the level of criminal conspiracy. That's not true. The Democrats that are telling you that, their evidence of collusion with Russians is this. Hey, did you hear someone connected to Trump talk to a Russian? That must be evidence of collusion. That's nonsense. So what they fall back on is, yes, but there was Russian interference. And this is where I want to start. Now, after all of the investigations, keep in mind, at the conclusion of the Mueller report, we'd been investigating for 3 years at that point. You had the FBI investigation, then you had the Mueller investigation. Near limitless resources, near limitless people working on the case. Countless hours put into it. Countless hours on the media saying there's evidence of collusion. We had Democratic politicians like Swalwell and Schiff saying, we've personally seen the evidence of the crime. All of that went on to the point to this day, as of a month ago, I believe I read, 47% in a poll, which take the polls with a grain of salt, granted, of Democrats still believe all of the allegations in the Steele dossier. That's millions of people in this country that believe a debunked piece of evidence paid for by Hillary Clinton, sourced by Kremlin officials, debunked by their own guy, Mueller, they still believe it. That's how damaging this was. And to come away from it, from all that, we had meetings in Capitol Hill. We had Democrats saying it was an act of war. Russia attacking us was an act of war. That's what we were told. So the Mueller report's the definitive line. Okay, Mueller, you didn't find collusion, but lay it out for us. What was the Russia interference into our system? What were the cases? And he came up with 2. There were 2 incidents that's listed in the Mueller report. Now, the truth is there was a 3rd incident. And that was the biggest incident, which was Kremlin officials working with Christopher Steele, the DNC, and Hillary Clinton's campaign to feed information to the FBI and the DOJ that was disinformation. So Kremlin-sourced disinformation that was used to then spy on Trump's campaign by Obama's corrupt FBI and DOJ. That's the biggest interference, an interference so big that it led to a 3-year investigation. It led to half the Democratic Party still believing that Trump's a Russian stooge. It led to changing policies regarding Russia because we had to keep up the sanctions and the warmongering because elsewise it would have looked like Trump was in cahoots with Putin. All of that based on this Russian disinformation. Kremlin agents admitted. That's their version, by the way. That's not even my version. That's their version. How much of that, if Bob Mueller was tasked with investigating Russian interference and disinformation, how much time did he spend on that? We now know from the documents that he knew it was garbage. They knew before Mueller started his investigation, according to released transcripts from people like Brennan and Clapper and others, they knew it was garbage. They knew there was no proof of collusion. None. They knew there was no proof of the allegations in the Steele dossier. None. Yet despite that, Mueller how much time did he spend talking about all that Kremlin disinformation? Zero. Not a word breathed about it being Kremlin disinformation. For someone who was tasked first and foremost, supposedly the first thing, the most important thing that Mueller was doing was investigating Russian interference, he seemed to just oddly forget to even mention the most significant piece of Russian interference. And isn't that weird? We'll start to see a pattern between Mueller and the FBI. Every single time there was any accusation of a Russian doing something that could benefit Hillary, all of a sudden that wasn't worth investigating. Oh, no need to breathe a word on that. Or, for example, the Ukraine. Foreign interference into elections, always bad, right? Except when it's Ukraine helping Hillary Clinton. Then it's okay. No big deal. How is it that every single time we see foreign interference and it seeks to benefit the Democrats or Hillary, in fact, not only do we not talk about it, but when Trump talked about possibly investigating, they wanted to impeach him. But let's leave that aside from now. So what were the two instances of Russian interference that we were told? Number one, 12 Russian trolls, maybe more than that, spent couple 100,000, and that's the high estimate, on putting out ads on Facebook and Pokemon Go that were geared towards disliking Hillary. This is so stupid on face value. I can't believe that we actually were forced to attempt to take this serious. I mean, this story alone should discredit the mainstream media forever. You're going to tell me an election where we had $500 billion spent, where Hillary spent 2/3 of that and Trump spent 1/3 of it, that was outweighed by a couple people putting ads on Facebook and Pokemon Go. That's your claim. That's the claim that we have to take serious. And they did take it serious. Not only did the media take it serious, we had to have meetings on Capitol Hill. We had to bring Zuckerberg in to talk about it. We had to talk about social media censoring fake news. They honestly did that. Now, here's other problems with it. Then they had to admit, well, most of the ads weren't seen till after the election. And then when you look at the ads, what were the ads about? Things like Black Lives Matter, gay rights. Yes, those really sound like causes that would drive people to Trump. I remember all those Black Lives Matter Trump supporters, don't you? So only a small portion were actually anti-Hillary, and only a small portion of those were even seen before the election. Yet we were still told that outweighed all of the media bias, all of the spending bias that was done on behalf of Hillary Clinton. And we had to take that seriously. So on face value, it made no sense. Even if the story was 100% as it was claimed by the media, how could anyone take this seriously? And I felt like, I'm out there on my own. I'm obviously not. I'm assuming many of you there with me. But when it comes to people that actually have a channel or something, I felt like I'm out there on my own. Like, what are we talking about? Pokemon Go? That's what we're talking about? Squirtle and Pikachu, they overwhelmed the mass media conglomerate that is CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, blah, 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 all of that. They overwhelmed the trillions of dollars. Dude, if you want to win an election, just go get a Snorlax on your side. Am I proving how much of a nerd I am by naming less common Pokemon? That's how stupid this was. Your uncle that's always posting stuff like, Barack Obama's from Nibiru. He's a secret alien. Little did you know, he affected the election more than CNN and the New York Times. It's so dumb. But then, okay, so Mueller, he got it, man. Bam, he nailed those 12 trolls. Woo! Score one for the good guys, America. Bob Mueller, super patriot. Remember, it's Mueller time. You better watch yourself, you 12 Russian trolls. Bob Mueller got you dead to rights. Only, whoops, Bob Mueller didn't have them dead to rights, did he? See, because before the Mueller report even came out, the judge in the case, a person by the name of Dabney Friedrich, excoriated both Mueller and Bill Barr. And you know what the excoriation was for? Because they kept saying that this Russian troll farm was at the behest of the Russian government. Now, that's a key distinction. Because it's one thing for the Kremlin government, I guess, to be using Facebook to harm Hillary Clinton. Whatever. But if it's just some guy who happens to be Russian, so what? I could point to hundreds of people who happen to be Danish that probably had an opinion and were posting on Facebook about the election, or English, or French, or German. If it's not a government operation and it's just people who happen to be Russian, well, then you sound like quite the xenophobic a-hole, don't you? By making a huge deal out of that. And this judge said, you don't have any proof they were working for the Russian government. And so what was their response? They dropped the case. Did you know that? Right out of the gate, 50% of what we were told. Well, the important thing about the Mueller investigation, look how many people it charged. It actually charged Russians for interfering. 50% of that, boop, just like that, out. Gone. Nope, they didn't have evidence. It just happened to be Russian people that were posting memes on Facebook. No evidence it was from the Kremlin. Even if it was from the Kremlin, it's the dumbest story in the world. But it's not even from the Kremlin. They couldn't even prove that. So there it is. 50% of Russia interference down the drain. Okay, what are we left with? Well, the Russians hacked the DNC. That's what we're left with. Now, I told you from the get-go, I don't have access to the physical data, nor am I a computer scientist or anybody that knows anything about computers, really. So even if I had access to the evidence, I would need someone that understood, looking at the server and things like this. I'm going to bring up an article here. But even if I had access to the evidence, I wouldn't be able to say. So I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know definitively it was Seth Rich and it wasn't the Russians that hacked, because I haven't seen the data. Here's what I have been saying the whole time. There is just as much evidence that it was Seth Rich as it was Russia. It makes more sense that it wasn't Russia and it was Seth Rich or someone else. There's evidence out there that, again, I can't quantify because I don't understand, but from security or intel people and security people from past administrations that claim that the download speeds were more in line with someone taking a thumb drive and taking directly off the computer instead of hacking from half a world away. But I can't prove either of those stories. What I can say is the following. I don't trust the FBI for anything ever they say unless they could show me definitive proof. Ever again. And that goes for all of these government bureaucracies. They lie over and over. And we could look at the Flynn situation, the Carter Page situation, the Papadopoulos situation, the FISA gate stuff. Every single time the FBI is going one way. Hell, we could look at the Hillary investigation, how they're smashing evidence to help Hillary's team, letting people that they know were perjuring themselves in front of the FBI off the hook, writing evidence, changing what they're writing so that it falls in the criminal statute to let them off the hook. Every single action the FBI took, every single time, was questionable at best and illegal at worst. And every single time it went to help Hillary as much as possible and to harm Trump as much as possible. That doesn't mean that they're wrong about everything, but I no longer believe anything any of them say without definitive proof. So as far as I'm concerned, the Mueller evidence didn't present anything that we didn't already know. I also know that despite not being a genius or anything like that, I have a good BS detector. And I know when the FBI didn't get access to the physical server, that the story was garbage. I know. Because if it was an act of war, as the Democrats said, not only would the Democrats have insisted that the FBI get access to the physical server, but the FBI would have said, even if the Democrats said, no, you can't look at this, they would have said, no, we're going to look. It's out of your hands now. It's a national security matter. But somehow neither the FBI or the Democrats were insistent. Instead, they allowed an organization called CrowdStrike to make copies of the server. We now know they didn't even send the full copies. They sent redacted material to the FBI, where they reached their conclusion that just so happened to be the conclusion that the DNC wanted. Russia did it. Now, I also know a month later, CrowdStrike was hired by the Ukrainian government to investigate a hack. And they said to the Ukrainians, guess what? Russia did it. And then the Ukrainian government, they actually looked at the servers themselves. And you know what they said? Yeah, this wasn't Russia. And then CrowdStrike said, our bad, you're right, it wasn't Russia. But we have to believe them. We can't see the evidence, but we have to believe CrowdStrike. We're talking about possibly going to conflict with a nuclear-armed superpower. And the investigative agents that we're relying on are a private firm paid by the Democratic Party. But we were told, everyone says, all the intel agencies say, it's beyond dispute. It was Russia. It was Russia. How dare you question it? How dare you question anything about that? That's what we were told, right? That's what CrowdStrike said. Oh, look at me. How cute am I in that little square in the corner there, huh? From May 12th, 2020. That's yesterday. Russiagate collapses. CrowdStrike admits no evidence Russia stole emails from DNC servers. Fox News, Tucker Carlson, and the Gray Zone's Aaron Matei, by the way, who's a staunch liberal anti-Trump person, but he's been fantastic on this, because it's possible to actually be an investigative journalist and to be honest and have credibility, even if it hurts your side. And Aaron Matei is one of those people. I disagree with him vehemently in his politics, but he's been spot on that this Russiagate stuff was corrupt from the get-go. Matei broke down the newly released testimony from CrowdStrike President Sean Henry, admitting behind closed doors before House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff that, quote, we did not have concrete evidence, unquote, that Russian hackers stole emails from the DNC servers. Here's what was said. Mr. Schiff, and to the best of your recollection, what would that have been? Mr. Henry, counsel just reminded me that, as it relates to the DNC, we have indicators that the data was exfiltrated or else hacked. We did not have concrete evidence that the data was exfiltrated from the DNC, but we have indicators that it was exfiltrated. He continues, yes, sir. So that again, at stage 4, which, I mean, there's not, the analogy I used with Mr. Stewart earlier was, we don't have video of it happening, but there are indicators that it happened. There are times when we can see data exfiltrated and we can say conclusively. But in this case, it appears it was set up to be exfiltrated, but we just don't have the evidence that says that it actually left. Swalwell asks, and I just want to be clear, based on the last line of questioning, that you're not saying the circumstantial evidence in this case was weaker than direct evidence. It was only circumstantial evidence you could rely on. Is that right? Mr. Henry says, sir, I was just trying to be factually accurate, that we didn't see the data leave, but we believe it left based on what we saw. Do you get that? That's the head of CrowdStrike that we relied on, that for a pillar of this, the very beginning. Before Papadopoulos, before Carter Page, before any of that crap, what were we told? Russia hacked the server. An act of war. It cannot stand. And they never had proof. We think it happened. There's circumstantial evidence it might have happened. They don't even have proof that it was hacked. From the head guy, from the head of CrowdStrike. Now, everybody in Congress that had access to this knew that that's what CrowdStrike said. Yet the Democrats like Schiff are out there saying it's been proven. We have the proof. Russia hacked the DNC. The Republicans that saw it let them get away with it, with the exception of Devin Nunes. That's the core pillar to the entire Russia investigation. Out the window. Gone. Well, we think it happened, but we don't have proof that we were actually hacked. Now, that would start to raise questions like, well, wouldn't it be important then if you're the FBI and you didn't get access to the server, you're taking CrowdStrike's word for it, they're admitting, well, we only have circumstantial evidence, we don't even know if there was a hack. Wouldn't you go to, I don't know, the person who got the data and ask him, hey, where did you get this data? Someone by the name of Julian Assange? Nope, no need to talk to him. And he's out there saying, I didn't get it from Russia. Instead, they just spread the lie. We have proof it was Russia. We have proof it was Russia. It's unbelievable. So that's it. That was the two examples of Russia interference that we had. Right? We had the now we know, not enough to charge the Russian trolls, which was a dumb story from the get-go, but we can't even find proof that they were part of the Russian government. And we have CrowdStrike's work. Well, we can't prove that this was a hack, but we think it was. That's it. That's the evidence we had that started everything. Woo, what time is it? Man, I missed this. Let's read this together while I'm off on this rant. So, for those of you who don't know, the Director of National Intelligence, Grinnell, he was the one who forced Schiff to release a lot of these interviews that we now see that prove that Schiff's a big, big liar and should actually be in jail. It is part of at least sedition, probably treason. Provable sedition, at least. But Grinnell was also going to release documents, apparently, that were going to show who was involved in the unmasking of Flynn. So let's talk about Flynn real quick. Flynn then was, for those of you who don't know, he's going to come in and he's going to be Trump's national security advisor. And one of the things you do is talk to your counterparts. So he does that. He gets picked up on a wiretap and his name gets leaked to the media, who then says, Flynn's a Russian, which results in Comey admitting then he did something unprecedented and he sent these FBI agents, Peter Strzok being one of them, because somehow Peter Strzok's the only guy they had at the FBI. Just so happens the only guy they have to actually go interview people, whether it be Clinton people, Trump people, whatever, is Peter Strzok, someone who could smell Trump supporters in Walmart and wants an insurance policy to stop Trump from being elected. That's the only guy available, apparently, in every single investigation. So they send him out. They tell Flynn, you won't need a lawyer, just to chat amongst friends. Hey, by the way, what was that you talked to Kislyak about? In the 302 that was released, which I've done a video on, Flynn says, I don't remember talking to him about sanctions, but it could have happened. That's what Flynn says after he's asked 3 times. The FBI agents leave. They say, we don't think Flynn lied. Peter Strzok, we now know, is texting people saying, please, let's keep this Flynn investigation going. We have, who was it? The head, was it McCabe? One of the heads of the FBI, I can't remember exactly. We now have their notes that they said, what are we trying to do? Get this person to lie so we can get him fired or locked up? Remember, this is the detail that I think people are missing. Why is this so damning? Because we know the FBI knew exactly what Flynn said. They had the entire transcript of the phone call. So there is no reason to entrap him unless you want to get him fired or get him arrested. They knew there was no crime. They saw that there was no crime. So imagine that. You're like, we think the meat market down the store might be connected to the mafia. Let's put a bug in there and see. So you put a bug, and for a month you see there's no connection whatsoever to the mafia. This is all a joke. I know. Let's go in and ask them a bunch of questions that are confusing and see if we can interpret it as a lie. That way we could lock them up anyways. Why would you do that? You know that they didn't commit a crime. Now you're just acting out of political animus. So in other words, the FBI sought to entrap. Now, why the FBI that lied so often? Remember, we all have cell phones. We all have these that could record conversations. But the FBI doesn't do that. When they interview you, they don't record it. They send a couple agents in. Those agents then make notes called 302s. And if your version is different than the 302, who do you think the court believes? That's right. They believe Peter Strzok, the guy who had the insurance policy that wanted Trump to not win. So we have to just take their word. And we found out all kinds of things. Oh, well, the 302 they thought was Patenka's was actually Strzok's, and there were different versions, and the 302 wasn't written until weeks later. It's ridiculous. And all the while they knew that Flynn was innocent, that he hadn't committed any crime. Then they put pressure on his kid, then forced him to plead guilty, not to an underlying crime, but to lying, so that their entrapment scheme worked. So the whole thing got started because someone in Obama's administration, unmasked Flynn. The idea is this. You as an American have rights, particularly if you're someone who's a decorated military veteran like Flynn that's going to be in a prominent position in an upcoming cabinet. But all of us Americans have rights. They can't just spy on you and then release your name unless they get a FISA document, a FISA court warrant that says they're allowed. In order to get that, they have to prove that it's likely that you are a spy of a foreign country. Well, they didn't do that with Flynn. Now, you might be talking to a foreigner. They're allowed to spy on foreigners. Foreigners don't have the same protections as you. And so, if you call your friend, Yvonne in the Ukraine, I used to know an Yvonne from the Ukraine, and Yvonne is being investigated by the CIA, they might have a tap on Yvonne's call. Your voice would show up on that call. But it is illegal for them, particularly for political reasons, to unmask or to release your name as being on that call. That's what Susan Rice and people in the Obama administration did. Now, we know from documents already released that Obama was aware of this. Susan Rice said she was shocked that Obama said in a meeting with Joe Biden and herself and Comey, he was aware of the conversation between Flynn and Kislyak and the investigation going on it. So now let's see, apparently, you're going to read it with me, that the documents DNI Grinnell just declassified that says it's apparently going to name names of who in the Obama administration was involved. So let's check it out. Move my screen here. So this is me reading it for the first time, so I have no idea. Unmasking the Unmaskers. Biden, Brennan, Clapper, and Powers named in DNI just released list from today. A list of Obama administration officials who participated in the unmasking of former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn has been released by Senator Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley. The name include former FBI Director James Comey, former CIA Director John Brennan, former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, and former Vice President Joe Biden. And here's apparently a picture of it. Let's see if we can find it. This is from CBS, Catherine Heritage, I believe. Boop, boop, boop. Come on now, slow internets. I don't know if you could read this, but it says, below is a list of the recipients who may receive Lieutenant General Flynn's identity in response to a request processed between 8 November 2016 and 31 January 2017 to unmask an identity that had been generically referred to in an NSA foreign intelligence report. Each individual was an authorized recipient of the original report, and the unmasking was approved through the NSA's standard process, which includes a review of the justification for the request. Only certain personnel are authorized to submit unmasking requests to the NSA. In this case, 16 authorized individuals requested unmaskings for blank, different NSA intelligence reports for selected identified principals. While the principals are identified below, we cannot confirm they saw the unmasked information. This response does not include any request outside the specified time frame. And so we have Samantha Power, James Clapper, Kelly Deegan, Ambassador to Italy, John Phillips, Director of the CIA, John Brennan, Patrick Conlon, Jacob Lew, who's the head of the Treasury, Arthur McGlynn, Mike Nivold, Sarah Raskin, Nathan Sheets. Let's see, I think we got more here. It continues. Adam Stubid, Robert Bell, Christensen, James Comey, some redacted, Lieutenant Colonel Greenberg, Douglas Lute, James Hirsch, Mr. Leitenberg, Ambassador Douglas Lute, Scott Parrish, Elizabeth Randall, Tamir Waster, John something, Ambassador Bass, Dennis McDonough, Michael Dempsey, Stephanie O'Sullivan, Joseph Biden. Now let's talk about what this means. That's from the official document. So did you read what it said there? Let's go back to what it said at the top there. These people were all requesting the unmasking. They were all involved in the process that they knew that this person was going to be unmasked, Flynn, and they requested it. Do you get that? Now they knew he was innocent. They knew he didn't commit a crime. But they knew if he was unmasked, it could be leaked to the media. And then, from there, They could put pressure on to use their media propagandists to discredit this person and hopefully get him out of the administration. Now, why would they want Flynn out of the administration? Apparently, there was a discussion between Obama and Trump when Trump's incoming, and Obama said, the one person I don't want you to bring on is Flynn. And when you look at the possible reasons for that, Flynn was highly, highly critical of the Iran deal. And so he didn't want Trump, who had already expressed skepticism of the Iran deal, appointing someone as a national security advisor that said, yeah, let's rip that deal up. Remember, a deal which they admitted, John Kerry, Secretary of State, admitted, put arms in the hands of terrorists. Obama wanted that deal to remain so bad that they were willing to use the deep state, use the intelligence agencies to leak to the media, to unmask, and then further use the FBI to entrap an American war hero and prominent cabinet member of his opposition. We'll finish the article, see what it says. The revelation comes after Biden was caught trying to lie about his knowledge of the Flynn investigation during a Tuesday morning interview, changing course after host George Stephanopoulos pointed out his documented attendance at the January 5th Oval Office meeting in which key members of the Obama administration discussed the ongoing investigation into Flynn's intercepted contacts. Notably, Obama asked Comey to conceal the FBI's investigation from the incoming administration. Rand Paul says, the classified documents reveal VP Biden ordered the unmasking of General Flynn's private conversation. Anyone think that Biden might have abused his power to go after a political opponent? The Senate must immediately hold hearings on this. Clapper, Comey, Brennan, and even Biden owe it to the American people. They should testify under oath. What did the former vice president know? Or what did the former president know? And we'll leave it at there for now. There you have it. Now, people like me, have been saying that's what happened all along. We're constantly told, remember, you have this constant defense of Obama, of Barack Obama. Anytime there's any kind of scandal, he's like, oh, I didn't know about that until I read it in the newspaper. And we're supposed to believe that all the prominent officials in Obama's cabinet and Obama's administration, they didn't know what was going on underneath them. Anytime the IRS is doing stuff, oh, I had no clue. The FBI is doing stuff, I had no clue. People are getting unmasked, no clue. All of these leaks to the press designed to hurt Trump. Every single one. No one's been prosecuted. There's one or two people, I think, low-level people that have been charged. Where's the outrage? Imagine that if Trump did 1/10 of this. Let's say Trump loses to Joe Biden somehow. Imagine if Trump's just like, you know what? We're going to send the FBI to spy on, people in Joe Biden's cabinet. We're going to send them to entrap them. We're going to unmask what we find out to the press. Imagine the outrage. First off, the Democrats have a spine. They would never fire it, right? That's the difference. Jeff Sessions, I need to recuse myself. Oh, we need to recuse. Oh, we need to leave Mueller go on. Oh, we need to leave this investigation. Oh, we don't with Lindsey Graham. Leave the investigations go on. Oh, we're so sorry, Democrats. Please keep investigating us. When you accuse the Democrats or something, they're like, yeah, we don't give a shit. No, we're sticking it out, baby. We don't care. Loretta Lynch was in charge of deciding whether or not to prosecute Hillary Clinton. She met with Hillary's husband on a tarmac and still refused to recuse herself. All the while, from James Comey's own mouth, influencing the investigation. Oh, don't call it an investigation, call it a matter. We have texts from FBI agents admitting, doesn't matter if we choose to indict or not, there's no way Loretta Lynch will ever indict any of these people. Did not recuse herself. But when it's the other way around, anything goes, and the Republicans are right there to be like, yeah, go ahead and investigate. Yeah, it's reasonable. Ask Trey Gowdy. Yep, the FBI was doing the right thing here. So now we know definitively, after all the lies, and that's what it's like since 2017. It's been like pulling teeth. I said, this is the biggest political scandal in the history of our country. That's what I said in 2007. Let's see if I can bring it up. That's what I said in 2017. And everyone that I'm arguing against, everyone, it's like pulling teeth. Well, you can't prove this. You can't prove this. You can't prove this. You can't prove that. Even if you have 95% proof, it's not 100% proof. Maybe Obama didn't know. Maybe Biden didn't know. Maybe Comey didn't know. Oh, and you can't prove that they used the dossier. And if they did use the dossier, it wasn't a bad deal. If they did use it, it was only a small part of the dossier. And blah, 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 blah. On and on and on. And every time we find out, you were wrong. You were wrong. And I was right. And it's not just me. I'm not just bragging because it's like I'm somehow uniquely gifted, though I'm pretty good, gotta say. Let's see. When did I say that was? October. Let's see if I can find what I wrote. Here we are. Ooh, I was 3 days off. I said earlier, October 23rd. October 26th. On this website above Top Secret, my name is Grambler. So that's what you'll see here. Why the dossier may be the most serious political scandal the U.S. has ever seen. October 26, 2017. There are a lot of troubling allegations about this past election and the period before then. Although no doubt questions of Russian influence are important, I contend that we are seeing a far more serious threat and scandal play out before our very eyes. This scandal is as follows. If, and that's a big if, this dossier that we now know was paid for by Hillary's team was used by the Obama administration to obtain FISA warrants against Trump's team, it is the biggest political scandal I could ever recall in the U.S. I understand that all sides do oppo research and that occasionally that can be used for an investigation, but I want to highlight the reasons that I think that this situation is so much more serious and a very credible threat to our political system. I give a bunch of reasons, but here's the big ones. 4, we now get to the huge problems. If this dossier was used to obtain FISA warrants, it's one of the most corrupt things I've ever seen in this country. People mentioned how on all sides, including Trump's pay groups for oppositions for research, and how sometimes that could lead to an investigation. I agree with this, but those investigations are known to the public. For example, the possible Uranium One deal investigation. Everybody knows this is going to happen, though it still hasn't. Now, imagine instead of this being made public, the info was given to Trump, who then got FISA warrants and surveyed his political opponents without their knowledge. That would be an outrage. Let's look at all the ways this is disgusting. First, the dossier has disgusting allegations that have nothing to do with crimes, like the Peace story, was written in a very amateur way and has parts that could be proven to be false, such as Cohen being in Prague. For this then to be used to survey a political opponent's campaign for president is insane. The threshold for something like this has to be immensely high, or else every sitting president can utilize the intel community against their opponent. Next is the fact that as incredibly bad as getting the secret warrants to survey his opponent would be, Obama then went out of his way to make sure this info was shared with as many intel people as possible, which all but assured leaks to the press. A situation like this involving a candidate for president is so serious that it should be kept as tight-lipped as possible, but Obama did the opposite. Obama also told European allies that Trump may have shady connections to the Kremlin, thereby jeopardizing relationships with these countries in the event that Trump won. All of this is unique and the most authoritarian election-influencing action I've ever heard of. The precedent has now been set for sitting president's party to pay foreign agents to go to countries that we are rivals or enemies with, get any kind of poorly written or scandalous info for that country's agents about the other party's candidate, then without the other party knowing it, getting FISA warrants to investigate and survey them with the FBI, spread that info far and wide, and to make sure that it gets leaked to the press, and even tell allies about it. In effect, this makes the FBI a tool for the sitting party to act as its own opposition research team, a team that could violate your rights and arrest you. It is the most Orwellian thing imaginable and should be rejected in the strongest possible terms, and all of those responsible need to be held accountable. 5. Then there's the matter of the FBI itself. They were going to pay Steele to continue his research, which is unbelievable. Not only was the material Steele gave them scandalous, written poorly, and easily proven wrong in many parts, but they then decided they wanted more. Think about this. The FBI has to know, given the fact that this could literally dictate who wins the presidency and possibly prove Russia tried to subvert that election, they had to know this is one of the most serious and difficult cases they would ever deal with. So they hire a foreign agent who was paid for by one of the candidates' teams to go to Russia and use Russian sources to get more dirt. That's outrageous. But it doesn't stop there. Now the FBI is stonewalling congressional subpoenas to testify as to this situation, and most importantly as to whether the dossier was used to get warrants. Every single American should be livid over this. This reeks of the FBI being a political tool, not to mention all the leaks that were coming out of the FBI in the first place. It seems as if the FBI is basically acting as its own entity that is not accountable to the people. We are talking about one of the most powerful agencies in the world, with the power to look into anyone's life at a whim, possibly favoring one political party and having no accountability to the people whatsoever. This is a nightmare. Remember when Schumer said the intel community could get back at people that anger them? And this is just one issue in a bunch of very questionable issues involving the FBI. Due to all those reasons, I believe that if, and a big if, the dossier was used to get FISA warrants, it's the biggest scandal I've ever seen and the biggest threat to our system I've ever seen. People are worried about Russia influencing our system, which you have the right to be, but that pales in comparison to how dangerous it would be to have a sitting party weaponize the FBI against political opponents. Man, am I good or what? That's October 26, 2017. Where was Trey Gowdy? Where was Lindsey Graham? Why is it me? How did I figure all that out? Tucker's been good. Hannity's been all right. Rush's been good. Dan Bongino's been good. There's others. Kimberly Strassel, Sarah Carter. But the vast, overwhelming amount of the media not only buried the biggest political story in my lifetime, maybe ever in the country, but actually propagandized and helped it. Helped the corrupt people get away with it. That's the insanity. Now, what I was writing was just about the dossier. Since then, we found out so much more. We now know that they knew the dossier was garbage, but still used it. We now know that they entrapped Michael Flynn and knew that he didn't commit a crime and still went after him. Let's briefly go through some of the other people. Manafort, they say, they got Manafort. Yeah, they got Manafort for crimes he committed with the Podesta Group, which was the group founded by Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, in which they were lobbying for a Ukrainian president that was pro-Russian, two politicians in the United States. You know who one of those politicians they were lobbying was? Hillary Clinton. And she damn well knew it. So Manafort gets charged with those crimes. And the Podesta Group that he worked with, committing the exact same crime with the exact same people, were allowed to retroactively file paperwork. So that's the first guy they got. Crimes that were committed in 2013, years before Trump decided to run. That's okay. That's the first guy they got. Then they got Papadopoulos. We're told the entire investigation started because of Papadopoulos. Now, let me just give you the cliff notes. The story, before we get to, and this is always the case, before we even get to the details, the story doesn't make sense. So I'll just give you the most charitable version why this would warrant an investigation. Here's the bare bones. You got this guy who's an unpaid volunteer for Trump's team named Papadopoulos, who's like taking one picture with Trump, who Trump barely knows. He goes off to Europe. He meets this professor named Mifsud. Mifsud says, hey, by the way, Stephen Halper, that we know is an FBI spy, is taking some woman who's called Azra Turk that's basically trying to hook up with George Papadopoulos to get information out of him. But none of that really comes to anything. In fact, quite the opposite. We now know that there's audio proof of those spies sent. George Papadopoulos saying, no, I wouldn't do anything illegal. We're not trying to work with Russians, blah, blah, blah. So there was actually exonerating evidence that was withheld by the FBI. But here's the official story, why the investigation was necessary. Mifsud tells Papadopoulos, hey, I want you to meet these Russian people. They say they got dirt on Hillary. Papadopoulos meets these Russians. The Russian says, I have dirt in form of emails on Hillary Clinton. And Papadopoulos goes, oh, okay. So he goes back and he's like, hey, Manafort and company, I talked to this Russian who says he's got dirt on Hillary. And they're like, yeah, don't bother with that. We don't want it. And then fast forward, Papadopoulos is getting drunk with Alexander Downer, who's an Australian diplomat who happens to be instrumental in being not only a friend of Hillary Clinton, but getting 10 million of Australian dollars sent to the Clinton Foundation. And supposedly, even though we don't have any proof of this, George Papadopoulos gets drunk and says, hey, Alexander Downer, listen to this. I talked to a Russian, and they said they have emails on Hillary Clinton. That's it. That's the entire story. Never once an allegation that Papadopoulos offered some sort of quid pro quo, something illegal to get these emails. Never once an allegation that Russia even had these emails. Never once an allegation that people in Trump's team said, we got to do what we can to get these emails. Nothing. A drunk guy, barely on Trump's team as an unpaid volunteer, said, I heard some Russians say that Russians have emails on Hillary. That's it. That's the big scandal. That's, according to Mueller and the FBI, that's the start of Crossfire Hurricane right there. Oh my God. We better investigate a person running for president because an unpaid volunteer said they heard that a Russian said they have emails on Hillary? Get the wiretaps out. Now we know it was all garbage. So here's other ways we know this story's garbage. We now know that the FBI, not only were they sending Stephen Halper and this woman Azra Turk as spies to spy on him, based just on this garbage story, but at one point he was offered a briefcase full of money. Now, it's illegal to not check a briefcase like that in when you're flying overseas. And so he smartly did not take the briefcase full of money. He left it in his hotel, and he got in the airplane. And when Papadopoulos got off the airplane, the FBI was waiting for him and was like, where's the briefcase? What briefcase, he says. Because they set him up. They wanted to get him on some wire transfer charges, but they couldn't. So they made up this garbage lying story. He spent a day in jail. The other part of this, and if you go back and listen to Jim Jordan's testimony in the Mueller report, the number one villain in all of this is the Maltese professor, Joseph Mifsud. Oh, he sounds like a Bond villain or something. I just picture him, with a monocle smoking one of those extender cigarettes like, my name is Joseph Mifsud. I am the Maltese professor with connections to the Russians. Why am I doing a shitty French accent? I don't know. Right? But okay, not my version, theirs. My version is Joseph Mifsud was working with Stephen Halper and Azra Turk, was probably an MI6 agent working on behalf of the English government, the UK government. So it was a spy who was sent there to give disinformation, right? The idea would be this. You feed information to someone. So let's say I'm a member of the CIA and I go to Umpire's Post here and I say, hey, Umpire's Post, I heard that Trump's team's doing something illegal. And Umpire's Post is like, really? Wow. He doesn't know I'm a member of the CIA. He just thinks I'm his buddy. And he's like, okay. Then later tonight, Umpire's Post at a bar. He's like, yeah, I had this guy tell me that Trump's team's up to something illegal. Then that person reports back and says, he did it. Umpire's Post said he heard Trump's team's doing something illegal. Time to spy on him. Time to investigate Trump's team. But wait a minute. The CIA made up the allegation. It's this famous story. Hunter S. Thompson, who wrote Fear and Loathing, there's this famous story. I can't remember what politician it was, but he asked a question in a press poll to a politician. He was like, "Isn't it true there are rumors of you, doing drugs and having sex in these orgies and infidelity?" And the guy's like, "No, I haven't heard those rumors." And so Hunter S. Thompson's challenged on it later. And it's like, "What do you mean? You said that there's these rumors. That's not true." And Hunter S. Thompson's like, "Of course it's true. I made them up." But technically, he's right. It's true that there are rumors. The FBI said, aren't there rumors Russians have emails of Hillary Clinton? Yes, because we told that to Trump's team. And now we're investigating Trump's team. But Mueller says, no. Mifsud wasn't Western intelligence. Mifsud was a Russian spy. That's Mueller's version. Now, we know that when it came to patriotic Americans like Flynn or someone trying to just serve an administration like Papadopoulos, they threw the book at them for allegedly lying to the FBI. So you would guess that if someone that you're suspecting of being a Russian spy is caught lying to the FBI, they would certainly charge them, right? If you're going to charge an American hero like Flynn because, hey, lying to the FBI is such a big deal, then why wouldn't you charge, even if you can't prove that Mifsud's a spy for Russia, if you assume he is, as Mueller and the FBI do, that's what they claim, then why wouldn't you charge them with lying to the FBI? Now, go to Mueller's testimony. Jim Jordan says, isn't it true that the FBI interviewed Joseph Mifsud? Mueller says, yes, that's true. And he says, isn't it true that the FBI says that during that interview, Mifsud lied to them 3 times? And Mueller says, yes. And Jim Jordan says, given that it's your theory, well, he doesn't say it quite like this, but given that Joseph Mifsud, according to Mueller, is the guy that started this all. He's the high-ranking Russian asset that got the entire ball rolling, that made the entire 3-year investigation necessary. Given that, and you've already indicted Russian trolls that did next to nothing, so given this guy's actually on the Kremlin payroll, a spy for Kremlin, infiltrating a campaign for president, who lied to the FBI 3 times, why did you not charge him with the crime? And Mueller says, he gets all angry, we're not going to talk about why we charged people or didn't. That's what Mueller said. The head Russian spy that infiltrated a campaign for president that warranted a 3-year investigation into that campaign and into that presidency. They had him lying 3 times to the FBI. And they're like, man, we just don't feel like charging him. But these Russian trolls, oh my God. And Mike Flynn, an American hero, even though the FBI didn't think he lied, we're going to charge him for lying, and we're going to charge Papadopoulos for lying. Now, what possible explanation could you give for why Mueller or the FBI would not charge the Russian spy for lying to the FBI, but would charge an American hero? Either they're incredibly incompetent, which is what they'll have you believe, or they knew something about Mr. Mifsud, didn't they? He wasn't a Russian spy. He was a Western spy. And if that's true, The thing that they admit, because remember, originally we heard it was the Steele dossier. That was the story that came out right before the election. Mother Jones did a piece about the P allegations in the Steele dossier, and CNN was reporting on it, and Jake Tapper was reporting on it. And then we had the election, and then once Mother Jones reported it, then it started to come out. BuzzFeed was doing reports on it. BuzzFeed actually released, like the day before, the actual text of the dossier and the allegations, and then everyone was talking about it, and it needed an investigation, and Comey said, I had to brief Trump on the allegations in the dossier. That's a whole debacle there. That story was garbage. Remember, at this point, we know that Brennan's working for CNN. Comey's version is Brennan approached Comey and said, hey, you should really tell Trump about this Steele dossier. Whoa. And so Comey has a little meeting with his friends, and they say, hey, you ought to record this. Why are you recording the president? Well, we want to make sure that, nothing criminal said. What are you talking about? You're just briefing the president on salacious allegations. But he does. He makes a transcript of the meeting as soon as the meeting's over. And in the meeting, he admits, we're worried CNN's sitting on this story, but they need a hook for the story. And so I just thought I should tell you. And then magically, CNN gets wind. After their guy Brennan, former head of the CIA, told Comey to have the meeting, they get wind that the meeting happened, and then CNN says, now we could report the story, because the reason we're reporting the story is the president was briefed on it. So now we can tell you what was in the dossier. Comey, who was used like that, he says, I didn't have any part of that. You would think that if you were the head of the FBI and you briefed the president and you're like, I want you to know about this peace story. And the reason is those dirty bastards at CNN are sitting on this story and we don't want to give them a reason to run it. And then someone in your team leaked to CNN, hey, guess what? The head of the FBI just told Trump that. Now you could run the story. Wouldn't you be furious if you're James Comey? Who in my team leaked that? Who leaked that to CNN? That was the whole point. Almost like Comey wanted CNN to have a reason to run the story. The very start, once the Steele dossier, once we found out, wait a minute, this is paid for by the DNC and Hillary's team? Wait a minute. All of this is written like a 6-year-old wrote it? Wait a minute, there's things that are easily disprovable? Opposition research was used to start. They knew. The media was like, no, this wasn't the start. Look at this Papadopoulos thing. That was the start. July 1st, 2016. That was the beginning of Crossfire Hurricane. It was because of the Papadopoulos thing. Okay, fine. Let's take your word at that. So I just went through the problems with the public. That's the beginning of the entire investigation based on garbage. That's Papadopoulos. Carter Page next. Do I even have to speak? They couldn't even fake charge him with a crime. They had to change evidence to say the opposite of what it said. Hey, CIA, did Carter Page... Think about it. Think about this story. This is the story they spun to people. Why they needed to spy on Carter Page. Carter Page, he was talking in a university in Russia, and then he talked to these Russian people. And then the allegations from the Steele dossier were he was promised billions upon billions of dollars of shares of a Russian fossil fuel company if Russia helped Trump, and then Papadopoulos had Trump help Russia if he was elected? You gonna give 20% of your fossil fuel industry over to one guy on a wing and a prayer that he will, if his guy wins, then he'll have his guy help your country out? Not to mention, why the need for these back channels? We're also told simultaneously that Trump has a direct line to Putin. Heck, Trump went on national TV and told Russia to hack Hillary, remember? Oh wait, it couldn't be that was a joke. So simultaneously, they'll have us believe that Trump and Putin are constantly having these conversations to steal the election, but they had to send some nobody to Russia, to a university, to talk to a nobody from Russia to set up this entire deal. That's the claim. Well, it turns out we now know that it's all garbage. And so what the FBI did was they started to realize that it sounds bad, right, in paper. And do you know this? In the past, Carter Page was involved in a criminal investigation about shady contacts with Russians. That was put everywhere. That was put all through the media. Oh, it sounds bad. Yeah. So what happened in that investigation? He was a source helping the CIA bring down shady Russians. So it's the exact opposite. Yes, he was involved in an investigation with Russians, helping the U.S. government take the Russians down. So then, after they pushed through for their FISA warrant corruptly based on paid opposition, unverified research sourced from Kremlin agents in the form of the Steele dossier, which is admitted, we now know through released documents that Brennan and Clapper, they all knew there was no proof that anything in the Steele dossier was true whatsoever when they used it to spy on Trump's team. They know now. We now know that. So just made up rumor. Think of the precedent that says, hey, don't like Joe Biden? Just say you talked to some Russians and they said that Joe Biden's stealing the election with them. That's it. The FBI will now spy on Joe Biden. That's all it takes. You don't have to prove it. Make sure you throw in some urine stories there as well, right? So they knew it wasn't true. They used it to spy anyways. It was sourced by Kremlin officials. Carter Page was then, they have to renew the warrant every 3 months. So after the second time, all these stories are getting out like, well, Carter Page worked for the CIA. So the FBI emails the CIA. Hey man, did this guy help you bring down some Russians? And they respond back, yeah, he was an asset for us. He helped us bring down Russians. And so what does the FBI do? They say, let's see. Here's the email they get, right? You see this? He was a CIA asset. Okay. And the FBI looks at that and goes, that hurts our story. I know how to fix that. There we go. Problem solved. Isn't that great? Now, for you laymen out there, you might think, isn't that faking evidence? So wait a minute. Law enforcement not only faked evidence, but took evidence and then added things to it to make it say the exact opposite of what the evidence actually said. Again, I've likened it to fingerprints. Let's say I'm accused of a crime. They say I stole something from a home. The investigators find fingerprints and they're like, we got you now, Chunky. You're going down. So they run the fingerprints through the lab and they're like, actually, it's not Rob. It came back to this other guy. These fingerprints aren't Rob. It would be horrible if the police hid that information. They said, we're not going to tell Rob that the fingerprints weren't his. We're just done talking about the fingerprints. But what would be even worse if they were like, yeah, we're just going to lie and say the fingerprints are his. That's what the FBI did. In addition to that, the allegation was Christopher Steele, he didn't know any of this. Christopher Steele's just this spy that was paid by the law firm that Hillary and the DNC were paying. He was a British spy. So the reason he was paid was he had all these sources that told him things. Again, go back to watching The Wire, right? Like, I love The Wire. But one of the things they're talking about all these police, that's like drug police and homicide police in Baltimore, they have informants. They have confidential informants. That's people on the street. So oftentimes they don't see something, but they'll give $10 to a crackhead that's like, yeah, man, I saw Marlowe gun that guy down on the street. The cop didn't see that, but the cop talked to someone who told them that. That's the role Christopher Steele's playing. He didn't see anything that he alleged that Trump did. He just talked to Kremlin officials that told him these things. That's what happened. So eventually, someone in the FBI comes up with the idea like, you know what we should do? Why don't we actually talk to the source that Christopher Steele talked to? Why are we playing phone tag? What does your guy say? Let me talk to him for a minute. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, he says blah, 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 blah. Eventually, the FBI's like, why don't we just take you out of the equation and we'll talk to the guy ourselves? Okay. So they talk to the guy and they come away from the guy and they tell the FISA court, we talked to the source that made these allegations and we find him to be truthful. So if I'm a judge in that court, I'm like, oh, okay. So the source agrees with what Christopher Steele said. There's only just a tiny little problem. Just one little problem there. The source was honest. The source was truthful. And what the source said was that everything Christopher Steele said was wrong. They were joking about the P thing. There was no evidence that anyone connected to Trump's team did anything illegal with any Russians. And that he was shocked that this was being used to spy on people connected to Trump's campaign. That's what the source said. Now, what Christopher Steele says at that point is irrelevant. Because he admits, I didn't hear these conversations. My source told me. So when the FBI talks to the source, that's it. That's the end of the investigation. That's it. Any FBI or law enforcement agency that was interested in justice would say, well, that's it. We don't have a case anymore. That's it. Imagine you're trying a murder trial and you put the witness on the stand and the witness is like, they're like, isn't it true you saw Rob shoot that guy? And they're like, actually, no, it wasn't Rob. It was some guy completely different. That guy, it definitely wasn't Rob. We're still going to plug away like you said it was Rob. We'll say you were honest and fruitful and you said it was Rob. That's what our FBI did to keep spying on Trump's team. This is public knowledge. The IG released this. Democrats are like, we don't give a shit. The FBI's like, Christopher Wray's like, we don't care. No one cares. We'll get to the bottom. We'll make sure this doesn't happen again. Where are the Republicans? Oh, that was naughty of you guys. Shame. Shame, shame. Anyways, moving on. That's the biggest political scandal in the history of the country. I said it would be the biggest political scandal if they used unverified opposition research to spy. But throw on top of it, and then when the FBI realized that it was all fake, they kept lying and directly lying, telling the opposite of the truth so that they could keep spying. It's proven. I had a discussion with someone on Twitter the other day. I talked about this in a video. They said, well, that's not proof that it's corrupt. I would need the Washington Examiner and CNN and Fox News to tell me it's corrupt. And if they don't say it's corrupt, then I don't believe it's corrupt. That's the state of affairs right now. That's how far the Republicans have fallen. They've let the Democrats control the narrative so much that with the FBI manipulating evidence that they knew wasn't true before they started, not only did they use evidence that they knew the opposition paid for that was sourced by the very country they were saying was the enemy, but they knew it wasn't true, and then they just flat out lied about it in order to keep spying on Trump's team. It's proven. It's out there for me and you to read. It's been out there for months. No one seems to care. That's Carter Page. So we got Flynn. We see the garbage that happened with him. We did Manafort. We did Papadopoulos. We did Carter Page. Who else did they get? Cohen? Here was Cohen's big crime, right? One, he squealed like a pig and instantly said, Trump's the worst, Trump's the worst, Trump's the worst. What was Cohen's big crime? He mixed up the dates on when there were discussions of Trump Tower being in Russia. Now, is it a crime for Trump to want to build a tower in Russia? No, not at all. See, they were asking about this because of the allegations in the Steele dossier that they knew was BS. But what they do is they put you in a room and ask you a million questions and hope that you'll get confused and slip something up. Oh, you got that date wrong by a month? Guess what? You're under arrest now. You're going to spend 6 months in jail. Unless you sell out your boy Trump. That's what they did. So that was Cohen's big crime. Cohen lied about dates on when Trump was talking about building a tower in Russia. That's it. Was it illegal to build a tower in Russia? And the FBI knew that the suggestions that somehow it was shady to build a tower in Russia was all based on garbage because they knew the Steele dossier was garbage by the time they were interviewing Cohen. But that's it. That was Cohen's big crime. Anything else? Roger Stone? Roger Stone allegedly lied to investigators. I can't remember the exact nature of the lie. But looking at it, it did seem like he was slightly distruthful. Now, it wasn't about some crime or something. It was just about something little and petty that had nothing to do with anything. And he was suggested to get 7 years. Now, we know for a fact that Brennan lied to the FBI, Clapper lied to the FBI or Congress, Clapper, Comey. We know they all did. We know that Hillary's team lied. We know that Mills and Abedin lied. None of them got any time. Yet Trump supporters considered it a huge victory when Bill Barr came out and said, hey, 7 years for Roger Stone for lying. Come on, that's ridiculous. How about 2 years? And Trump supporters were like, yes, victory. Bill Barr recommends only 2 years for Trump's allies. Remember that. If you're connected to Trump, don't worry. His team will come up to the plate for you. And when a corrupt judge offers some draconian sentence of 7 years, he'll recommend only 2 years. Okay. Does that mean Barr's also going to recommend 2 years for Democrats and for intel people that lied to Congress and the FBI? Oh, no. He's not going to recommend charges. McCabe, we know McCabe. No, he's not going to. What the IG recommended a Barr to criminally prosecute Comey for lying and sharing classified information? No, he recommends 0 years for that. 0 years. Now, if Comey would have been connected to Trump, he would have recommended 2 years. That's a huge victory. That's the entire Russia story right there. Oh, wait. There's one other thing I forgot, right? So that's it. That's every player that's supposedly, we were told, well, at least they got those Russian trolls. No, they didn't. Well, at least we know that they hacked the DNC. No, we don't, as is admitted by the head of CrowdStrike. Well, what about Papadopoulos, the guy that started all of it? Yeah, supposedly, your version is the Russian spy that led him down that path, lied to the FBI 3 times, was let go, and it basically amounts to he heard someone say that Russians had emails. That's it. So where's the crime there? Carter Page, we know it was lied to, or it was lied about. Used unverified, knowingly false dossier, sourced by Kremlin officials to spy on, lied to the FISA court several times in order to be able to spy. The IG report said that the Woods procedures were violated over 100 times. The FBI has these procedures that are called the Woods procedures. And when they go to a FISA court, what these are they're procedures that you have to constantly recheck that the evidence you submitted was accurate. The IG report said over 100 times the FBI violated that. They straight up made evidence say the opposite of the truth. They straight up lied about the source saying, yeah, none of this happened. All of that. That's Carter. And they still couldn't charge him with the crime. That's Carter Page. Mike Flynn, we see that. They railroaded him from the beginning. They knew that there was no crime. They're on record publicly saying, are we just trying to railroad this guy? We're just trying to entrap him. Then the FBI says after the interview, and even after the entrapment, we still don't think he lied. But then Peter Strzok, Mr. I need an insurance policy, begs to keep the investigation going. Then we know that all of these people, including Joe Biden and Brennan and Clapper and Comey, they were all on the plan to unmask Flynn to the media. That way they could paint him as this Russian spy. And now we know that that was all garbage. The Roger Stone case was garbage. The Cohen's case, garbage. Now we know conversely that Clapper, Brennan, Comey lied. We know that Mills and Abedin both, this is from Peter Strzok's own notes, we know that they both said they had no knowledge of Hillary Clinton's private server until after her tenure at Secretary of State. But we know from emails of them that they knew as early as 2009, before her term as Secretary of State, that they were emailing each other about her private server. So they lied. We know that FBI agents that were unnamed, but their text messages have been released due to Freedom of Information Act. We know that they said that it defined credulity, that Hillary Clinton thought that the C at the top of documents didn't mean classified or confidential, but was alphabetical order. In other words, the FBI agent thought Hillary lied. She wasn't charged. We know that Hillary's team deleted subpoenaed evidence and no one was charged for that. We know that the FBI offered everyone immunity in the case of Hillary's case, even admitting that crimes were committed, like lying to the FBI and destroying subpoenaed evidence. But because they gave everyone immunity first, they were shocked to find out they couldn't charge anyone then, and no one decided to roll on anyone higher up the chain. Who would have thought, for the first time in history, a law enforcement agency, not to mention the most proficient and prestigious one in the history of the world, decided, you know what, normally what we do is we get the low-level people, we charge them with the crimes we could prove, and then we see if they roll on people higher up the chain. Let's try something different this time. How about we give all the low-level people immunity, and not only that, we'll actually destroy all their devices that prove that there were possible crimes committed, and then we'll just ask them, hey, do you want to roll over on people higher than you? Oh, you don't? Okay, case solved. The same FBI did all of that I just talked about. But there's one more thing. One more thing that's worth talking about. You remember hearing this ad nauseum? It's like an earworm. I could still hear it to this day. 17 intel agencies. It meant that Russia interfered in the election to help Donald Trump. 17. 17 intel agencies. 17. Can you name them? Yeah. There's the FBI, the CIA, and the other 15. Right? That's 17. FBI, CIA, 15. That's 17. Wait, what? What are their names? How did they come to this? What do they mean interfere? What's going on here? Didn't you just hear me? 17. You remember that? 17? And then we found out it was, oh no, it was basically just all off the CIA's report. Remember that? Let me see. Boop, 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 boop. Oh my goodness, did I lose the article? We were told that. Then it became debunked. It was like, it was only actually 4 agencies. Well, then it was all based off the CIA report. But we've been told over and over. Russia wanted Trump to win. I said, why? Why would Russia want Trump to win? Trump's been harder on Russia than any president before. It's because Trump suggested they didn't want that the no-fly zone was a bad idea, or Trump suggested we should try to work with Russia. You can't ask questions. We just know Russia wanted Trump to win. Everything stems from this, right? Everything. Why are we talking about Trump with a tower in Russia? Why are we talking about Trump's tax returns? What's the implication? What could possibly be in those tax? You know why they want Trump's tax returns? Here's what they want. They'll thumb through. They'll go, hey, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. Well, Donald Trump made $100,000 in Russia? That's proof. Trump's a Russian stooge. Impeach. You got to impeach him. Trump's an agent of Russia. He made money in Russia. Just like they still tell you to say, Mueller's report uncovered tons of evidence of Russia collusion, just not enough to bring a criminal charge. No, it didn't. It uncovered evidence of people talking to Russians. Yes, international businessman does business internationally. Oh my God, what a shock. Maybe if any Democrat ever did anything or created any jobs before they were in office, they too would have connections overseas. Instead, they're just, having Chinese spies show for them and their children be on the board of directors into corrupt gas companies in the Ukraine and China. That type of stuff. That stuff's okay. But if Trump had a business in Russia, oh my God. And all this is because Russia wanted Trump to win, right? We know that. That's the most base. No matter how much I prove about the rest of this stuff, we know for a fact we could rest our cap on Russia wanted Trump to win. Period. We know it. It's the truth. On the right page up here. John Brennan concealed high-quality intelligence that Russia wanted Hillary to win. Former CIA Director John Brennan suppressed intelligence which indicated that Russia wanted Hillary Clinton to win because she is, quote, a known quantity versus the unpredictable Trump, according to Fox News' Ed Henry. During a Tuesday night discussion with Tucker Carlson, Henry said that Brennan also had intel saying, actually, Russia wanted Hillary Clinton to win because she was a known quantity, and she had been Secretary of State, and Vladimir Putin's team thought she was more malleable, while Donald Trump seemed unpredictable. Perhaps Russian President Putin has fond memories of the time Bill Clinton hung out at his private homestead during the same trip where he collected $500,000 payday for a speech at a Moscow bank, right before the Uranium One deal was approved. And as Breitbart's Joel Pollack notes, Henry's claims are backed up by a similar allegation by former National Security Council Chief of Staff Fred Fleitz, who said on April 22nd, House Intelligence Committee staff told me after an exhaustive investigation reviewing intelligence and interviewing intelligence officers, they found that Brennan suppressed high-quality intelligence, suggesting that Putin actually wanted the more predictable and malleable Clinton to win in 2016. Instead, the Brennan team included low-quality intelligence that failed to meet intelligence community standards to support the political claim that Russian officials wanted Trump to win, House Intelligence Committee staff revealed. They said that the CIA analyst also objected to including that flawed substandard information in the assessment. Even the claim, the base claim, the very foundation of the entire Trump-Russia investigation, his entire administration, the foundation of it is Russia wanted Trump to win. Even that's a lie. Now, if this is true, which I believe this person as much as I believe John Brennan, what are we going to do? And it doesn't matter anymore because now you have all this information in front of you. Most of this we've had. Again, need I go back? Who am I? Am I some guy with superhuman predictable ability to predict things? Am I some mastermind, some genius? Do I have incredible connections to intelligence agencies, media people connected to both the Obama and Trump administration? Nah, I don't have any of that. I'm some fat guy in rural Pennsylvania that makes about $15 an hour doing home health care with people with disabilities. I do a show, an investigation for my own entertainment. Yet somehow I was able to write on October 26, 2017, that the dossier being used, an unverified paid opposition research sourced by Kremlin agents being used to spy on a campaign for presidency, was the biggest scandal in the history of our country. And I was right. And with very few exceptions, all the media people were not only wrong, they actually told people like me, stop investigating this. You're harming the country. They didn't hold truth to power. They buried the truth for the powerful. That's what they did. Democrats like Schiff saw the evidence and blatantly lied. You had one Republican who saw the evidence and told the truth, and his name was Devin Nunes. And what did the Republicans do to thank him? When they held the House and the Senate, they decided to investigate Nunes. That's what they did. Not Schiff, not the guy lying. They investigated the Republican. There's your Republicans for you. They incrementally, this evidence has came out that you've heard people like me and other independent content creators and a few people like Tucker Carlson and Sarah Carter talking about how corrupt this was. And the Republicans still don't have a voice. They're still not out there. You think if this exact story had been George Bush doing this to an incoming Obama administration, within 1 year, Bush would have been in a gulag. Everyone connected to it would have been in prison. The media would be foaming at the mouth. There'd be riots on the street. But now it's like, where's the Republican leadership in this? Lindsey Graham says, one of these days we'll need to have an investigation into this. I'm kind of sure. Trey Gowdy, what do you think? Yeah, I'm all about the rule of law. I'm a former prosecutor. I'm very serious about the rule of law. But the FBI did everything right. They did everything right. Now, unfortunately, the evidence has been made public and I've been proven to be a liar or just incredibly incorrect on this. It's, everybody makes mistakes. It's infuriating. This is the biggest pet peeve of mine. Yes, I could come on this channel and say the Democrats suck. They do. And I do say that quite often. But the truth of the matter is, if the other side, if we don't get Republicans that are willing to fight to end this corruption, then it doesn't matter how much we point it out. And it's a damn shame that none of these Republicans will move unless enough of us regular people start to get motivated enough to force them. That's not what leadership is. And I'm tired. I'm just tired. What am I going to do? Am I going to make more phone calls? Is that what I'm going to do? Hey, vote for the Republican Party, like I've done in the past. Am I going to go to more Republican events? Probably. I'll probably end up doing that stuff. And for what? Why do I put so much passion and investigation into this, only to have the people I vote for say, yeah, you're right, Rob, that's really corrupt. Anyways, can you send me some more money? Oh, no, we don't have time to deal with that corruption now. We have other things to deal with. You're right, Ford Nation. That's a funny typo. Trey Gowdy, all Baraka, no bite. And that's exactly right, Steve. Not only is that relevant, is that Coup story still relevant today, but it also directly applies into the COVID. It directly applies. That's exactly what the first half of this video was about. I would do these videos on this corruption, and I had people that I liked that would be like, okay, Rob, you keep talking about corruption. There's other stuff to talk about. And there is, and sometimes I talk about other stuff. But this story was so important because if we don't end this corruption, every single issue that comes up is going to be directed by this corruption. Now we have the COVID thing. Exact same garbage going on. It's not just the CIA or the NSA or the FBI. It's this bureaucratic class. It's the oligarchs that are financing them. As long as they still operate, the next time there's a virus like this, we're going to lock down again. We're going to do whatever they feel they could get away with to consolidate more power for them and less rights and less power for you, which means harming you economically. That's what they're going to do every single time until they're held to account. And look, I hope that the Q people are right. I hope that the people that are saying Trump's playing 4D chess are right. All I can tell you is the evidence that I'm looking at in my lived experience. And when I could prove beyond a shadow of a doubt with publicly available evidence that Comey has lied to Congress, that McCabe has lied to Congress, and they're let off the hook for those crimes, I'm not going to believe, well, maybe they let them off the hook so they could get them for some bigger, more severe crime down the road. Sorry. Or the Epstein stuff, I have to listen to Bill Barr say, yeah, Epstein killed himself. Sorry. Well, it's all part of some secret plan. I guess that could be true. It could also be true that all the stuff that Barack Obama did that I didn't like was also because Barack Obama's a true patriot who, if Trump's 4D chess, Obama's 5D chess. He was really playing the long game, getting all these corrupt Democrats to think he was part of them, only to spring the trap years later. Yeah, I don't believe that. I'm going to call out the abuses of Barack Obama. If you believe that Trump's playing 4D chess and that's why he's supporting the lockdown and that's why he's spending trillions of dollars and that's why Bill Barr's in on this and Jeff Sessions, that's why they've let Comey and Clapper and Brennan and all them off the hook thus far. If you believe that, then how couldn't I sell you the same story? Look, I know it looks really bad right now with all this evidence coming out. Like, for example, we just saw the unmasking evidence that Brennan and Clapper and Comey and Biden, they were all involved in the unmasking of Flynn. But in reality, they really like Flynn. And they knew if they unmasked Flynn, that would cause the media and everyone to jump on. And then 20 years down the road, they'll be able to say, see, we knew by improperly unmasking Flynn, it would out all of these corrupt people and it would wake the American people up. So we're actually patriots. We did the right thing. Would you believe that? I bet you wouldn't. I bet you'd say, yeah, that's garbage. How about we throw the criminals in jail? That's how I feel. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is this 4D chess game being played. I don't know. And I'm not going to rely on that. What I can see is that there is evidence of these crimes and it remains. And not only does it remain, the people not being arrested, but the Republicans are barely raising a peep about it. That's what I see. And I see, because we didn't do anything up to this point, the same type of garbage has gone into now the most strict and abusive restriction of my rights in my lifetime and probably in the history of this country. And probably going to be the biggest economic collapse in terms of sheer numbers of people that it affects in the history of this country. And we don't have a prayer if both sides, if people, not the politicians, but if people on both sides, if the people that called this abuse out the most, right? Go back, use the Iraq war analogy. What chance do you have of having a credible anti-war movement if the staunchest anti-war people all of a sudden become pro-war because Barack Obama's a cool guy? Now you're fighting both sides. And that's what I said. Everyone, again, I've lost subscribers. I've lost viewers. That's fine. But the reason I harp on this so much is when you have your back against something, you could push. But when that collapses, when you no longer have any support and you're completely surrounded, how are you going to have an effective push? When people that bragged, we're fiscal conservatives, we believe in the Constitution, we believe in rights, when they were some of the loudest people saying, it's just a piece of paper, how dare you talk about your rights, you're more concerned about your 401k than old people dying. Wait a minute, aren't you a Trump supporter? Aren't you a fiscal conservative? Aren't you someone who talks about the Constitution? Shut up! Not in times of emergencies like this. What chance do we have? But let me tell you, and I honestly mean this, my life's going in a good direction, and I'll talk about more of it in the future. I'm very happy. It's one of the happiest points I've ever had in my life for various reasons. Carlos, who I saw in here, me and him are doing this radio show, WEJS, Talk Williamsport, 104.1 FM. Let me get that link for you. It's going to be hard to find now, isn't it? But yeah, that's going to be every Saturday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And there's a video I have up where you can check it out, where it links right to where you could hear about this directly on... wrong one. Wrong link there. Here we go. Now I got it. So I'll put the link up. But yeah, that's great. So I'm able to reach new people. So, for all those reasons, I'm optimistic. But I'm also optimistic about something else. I went through this really kind of dark place with everything in the lockdown. And look, I'm watching friends and family go through really, really bad times. I was one of the lucky ones. Me and my wife, we were considered essential work. Here's the link where if you listen to this link, at 11 a.m. Eastern time on Saturdays. You'll be able to hear Carlos and I's show with the great Todd Bartley, who also does the show with us. But anyways, it's dark. You're watching people. I'm watching grown men that I've never even seen shed a tear with tears in their eyes saying, that's it, I got to shut down my business. I'm watching people that have never received government assistance in their life beg and grovel, spending hours upon hours. One of my friends called 400-something times to the unemployment office before he got to talk to someone. Couldn't put food on the table until he got to talk to him. No fault of his own. Didn't fail a drug test. Didn't do something irresponsible. Went to work diligently every day he was supposed to for decades. And then through no fault of his own was told you can't work. It's dark. It's terrible. I see people scared. They don't know what to do. Right? And it was depressing. And it was depressing to lose so bad. It was depressing to see so many people to give in to fear, even those that consider themselves constitutional conservatives. It's depressing to see someone I supported so strong like Trump shoot himself in the foot by giving the Democrats everything they want and collapsing his economy. That was depressing. But I take the L, which was a loss, and then I'm now optimistic. And let me tell you why. All of this stuff's connected, all of it, right? I hope I did a reasonable job explaining to you how the FBI abuse and this corruption and this coup against Trump that we're now seeing the evidence made even more clear. It was already provable to me anyways, but now we're seeing the evidence made more clear. How that relates to COVID, because these sorts of deep state people, this is their agenda, and if you don't get them out of there, they're going to keep doing this type of stuff, whether it be climate change, a virus, war on terrorism, bailing out banks, whatever. No issue matters. It's always going to be their voice that's the only voice that matters. That's what we're seeing now. So I hope I showed to you how that theme goes through everything. And it does. It goes through all of these stories. To pick your story. Kavanaugh? Yeah. Same type of stuff. Covington situation? Yes. Illegal immigration? Yes. All of it. It's hard to explain. You know, I tell this story all the time. These establishment people, you have to understand, and I was talking to Carlos about this the other day. It's just hard to articulate, but in a way, you have to respect the corrupt globalist and their tenacity and their pursuit, damning all ethics along the way to achieve power. Because they think we are the group, we deserve the power, whatever their motivations may be. I too am fighting, and there's a lot of people that are fighting on the opposite side of that want freedom. That we think people have value and people should be allowed to make their own personal decisions and have personal responsibility and liberty, which is a double-edged sword. Remember, when you lived with your parents, you didn't have liberty, but you didn't have responsibility. They took care of everything. But you had to listen to them. I trust people to want to make the best decisions for themselves. And if they fail, so what? Just like Braveheart, would you be willing to trade each and every day from this day till the end of your lives for just one chance to fight for freedom, right? In other words, is life meaningful if you don't have freedom? I'm not talking about anarchy. I understand there's a rule for government. But that's what I'm fighting for this country, for the idea of personal liberty and responsibility. And there's a lot of people on our side too. But the truth is, with all those people on the globalist side and all of us people, it's still the vast bulk of people are somewhere in the center. They might be leaning one way or the other, but that's where they're at. They're in the center. And which side wins depends on which side gets those people. And the way the globalists get those people is they lie to them. They keep the truth from them. And the way we reach those people is we tell them the truth. That's why my side's not saying we need to ban hate speech. We need Twitter to take this speech off. We need to get rid of fake news. We need to do this. We need to do that. That's why we're not the side that's on college campuses saying, no, we don't want this speaker here. We only want one side of the arguments presented. That's the other side. That's the side that wants to keep you ignorant, that's saying certain things can't be said, certain things have to be censored, certain groups shouldn't have a voice. We're not saying that. So how do you reach those people? And it's difficult. It's difficult to reach those people. And I think that maybe, just maybe, they overplayed their hand when it came to this shutdown. Because I'm seeing people that didn't care at all about politics, who basically had 9-to-5 jobs, that just want the government to leave them alone. They want to have a family. They want to have some recreation. They want to go to their jobs. That's it. They don't want the government involved in their life. and we'd be at the bar drinking, and they'd be like, don't be talking about politics. I don't want to hear it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fair enough. For the first time, politics matters to those people. Because they're sitting at home on the couch right now going, I can't pay my bills. I don't know what I'm going to do. And by the way, we're here. We're at the tippy top. Wait until you see the economic destruction that's on its way. It's going to be devastating. Lives will be ruined forever. See you, Steve. We now have a unique opportunity. It sucks. I wish it would have never happened. But we have a unique opportunity to say, you see how they screwed you here now? You see how they took these faulty models, these Imperial College models that we know are a lie? You see how Dr. Fauci, that we're told is the end-all be-all, he said in January, the virus, don't even worry about it, it's not a big deal. And then in March he said, don't wear a mask. And now he's saying, the virus is the biggest deal ever. We'll never be able to fully open, and you have to wear a mask everywhere. You see that crap? You see how these people are telling us you have to stay indoors while they're going out? People like Cuomo, people like the mayor of Chicago, people like Ferguson that made the Imperial College model. See, they tell you, the peon, you have to stay at home. Well, they go do whatever they want. You see how that works? You see how they complain when things like, oh my God, Trump might suspend the election. That Joe Biden thinks that's unfair. That affects Joe Biden's rights to run for president. See, they care about their rights, but your right to go to work or your right to go to church, they don't care at all about. Now, I could have said this stuff 6 months ago and people have been like, yeah, whatever, Rob, I don't want to hear about politics. But now it's hitting them right in the face every day. And so now is the time for people that have had a strong, consistent message about liberty and personal responsibility, about the importance of our rights, about the importance of a limited government. Now is the time where we can tell people, you see, this is what happens. This is what happens. Both sides, Republicans and Democrats, we let them go out of control. And now you see the tyrants come out. And what they want is this on steroids. They want total control of your life. They want total reliance on them. And that's what they'll get if we don't wake up. By the way, that impeachment story, that Russia story, the illegal immigration crap, that climate change crap, the Covington story, the Kavanaugh story, it's all the same corrupt people pushing it. If they're willing to lie to you about this, to keep you from going to church, to keep you from going to your job, knowing that people are dying, 68% of the people that have died in Pennsylvania are in nursing homes. The Department of Health, Governor Tom Wolf's Department of Health, issued statements and policies to the nursing homes saying, do not let COVID patients leave the nursing home and go to the hospital. Knowing that the virus was spreading like mad through the nursing homes, our government said, no, keep the people in those homes. The most vulnerable people, keep them all in one area so they all get sick and die. That's what our government said. And then the sick people, I won't swear, they look at those deaths and say, see, we were right to take your rights away. They set the conditions up knowing it will kill old people and then have the audacity to use the deaths of those old people to say, we care about old people, you don't. This is proof we need to shut down longer. That's one state. And people are waking up. People that are losing people in nursing homes. There's already civil, my friend Carlos again sent me an article. There's already class action lawsuits against these nursing homes. The Attorney General in Pennsylvania has issued an investigation into nursing homes in Pennsylvania about these COVID deaths. A criminal investigation. Of course, the government won't find themselves guilty, of course. They create the problem, and then they use the problem. They call this the Hegelian dialect. Create the problem, then create the solution. They crush the economy and then tell you how wonderful they are because they sent you a $1,200 check. They force people into death trap nursing homes saying they're not even allowed to go to the hospital. And then when they die, they say, see, look how many people are dying, so you need to listen to us to take your rights away. They're making it up as they go. Anyone with half a brain could see that. Look, I'm against the lockdown. I was talking to a Democrat friend of mine who was for the lockdown. I said, fine, I'm not going to be able to convince you, but let's get beyond that. If there was going to be a lockdown, then there was a way to do it. For example, inform people exactly why it's happening. Have an actual lockdown. Don't have a lockdown that says, well, you could go to the landscaping store, but you can't go to the gun store. You could go to Walmart, but you can't go to the hair salon. You can go to the candy store in town. This is all true in my town. You can go to the candy store that sells candy, but you can't go to the restaurant. How is that effective? And now we're in phase yellow. What does that mean? Well, you can't have gatherings of 50 people, but you can have 2 gatherings of 25 people. Where is the medical science that says this is going to make a difference? Nothing. They're just making it up as they go. Governor Wolf said in mid-March, he said, oh, it's going to be a county-by-county solution. And then he said after that, nope, it's going to be a one-size-fits-all solution. And then he said after that, well, the reason it can't be county to county is because the virus has already spread asymptomatically to a lot of these counties. And so therefore, if we opened up some of these counties, if we lifted some of the restrictions, it would spread the virus there. And then 5 days later, he said, guess what? We're going to open up some of those individual counties. We're told masks don't work. We're told it's illegal not to wear a mask. We're told the virus isn't a big deal by Fauci. Then we're told it's the biggest deal ever and we have to shut down school in the fall semester and it could be 18 months. We're told by the models of Dr. Ferguson that if you don't do a lockdown, that 25 times as many people will die. But then when that model is applied to Sweden and it shows that it predicted 40,000 would die by May 1st, when in reality the number was less than 3,000, they say, oh, that doesn't count. They actually have the nerve to point to Sweden and say, see what would have happened to us if we didn't lock down like Sweden? Yeah, the per capita deaths like 0.02% higher or something like that. Like, I think it was like 30 people per 100,000 higher. Sweden still much fewer deaths per capita than the UK. And yet they point to Sweden like, aha, see? Could have did like Sweden. What they do is they cherry pick. They're like, Sweden's not doing as good as Finland. We could have been like Sweden. Okay, but even with Sweden, first off, it's not over yet. Because once Finland lifts the lockdown, guess what? More people are going to get sick. So we don't know what the total is. We see that the number is substantially going down in Sweden, though. There's not going to be a second wave. And economically, Sweden's in a much better place. No one ever argued that a lockdown wouldn't save lives. If that's all you're concerned about, like Joe Biden said, every life matters, we have to save every life, then here's what you do. Go to your basement right now and lock the door and never leave. Now you don't have to worry. See, isn't that the preferable solution? And if you're against that solution, you want to see people die. Of course not. We accept there's some inherent risk with life. It's the same. It's why we ask the question of the threshold. At what point do you say that this taking away of rights and shutting down the economy is necessary? Because we can see the flu in the United States kills 60,000 people a year. We don't shut down over that. So why do we shut down over this virus? What's the difference? People say, well, there's not a vaccine to this. Nor is there to the flu every year. The vaccine's different. And they'll say, in fact, we don't have a virus to any coronavirus. The common cold's a coronavirus. We don't have any vaccine. Okay, so then what's the implication? Shut down forever? What matters is how many people in totality die. The vaccine doesn't matter. The vaccine's just a mechanism to get less people to die. We have a vaccine for flu, and 60,000 people die a year of it. We don't, wait, based on this, well, we had to shut down because there's no vaccine. Okay, we don't have a vaccine for the common cold, so shut her down, right? No, what matters is how many people are going to be horribly negatively affected or die. That's what matters. It doesn't matter if that, so are you were telling me if we came up with a coronavirus vaccine and literally the exact same number of people would die, well, that's okay, we could be open now because there's a vaccine. That makes no sense. It's the amount of people dying and having severe side effects, or severe effects, not side effects, is the reason that we shut down, we were told. Flatten the curve. Don't overwhelm the hospitals. Well, we're beyond that now. If they were right, then we'd see a disaster in Sweden. We don't see a disaster in Sweden. If they were right, the states that didn't lock down as much as others, we'd see a disaster in, like South Dakota and Georgia. We don't see a disaster there. They're actually quite comparable. In fact, every single place that went with the most strict type of lockdown actually ends up being worse when it comes to like New York City, harder lockdown than here in Pennsylvania. Or how about the UK, harder lockdown than here in the United States? Now, I understand there's other factors, but again, the key point here was they didn't say a lockdown will save a few lives. They said without a lockdown, it'll be the apocalypse. 25 times more people will die. So when we look at the areas that didn't have lockdowns, we wouldn't expect to see, they have a couple less, couple more deaths. We would expect to see, whoo, insane amount of deaths there. But we don't see that. It's comparable. Almost like They didn't know what they were talking about. And let's be honest, they want to shame you from this discussion, but the fact is there is a certain amount of casualties that we're willing to accept. Again, if you don't believe that, then never leave your house. And so instead of being told 2.2 million Americans could die, a number that we knew was garbage from the get-go, because there's no such thing as a do-nothing scenario, and no one was credibly suggesting doing nothing. Instead, if they would have said, look, if we lock down, 80,000 will die. If we don't, 100,000 will die. Is that 20,000 worth the lockdown? I don't think so. Because how many people have died as a result of the lockdown? Again, 68% of deaths in Pennsylvania are these nursing homes that were directly affected by the lockdown because they were bought into the model so much that they were afraid hospitals are going to be overran. So we better tell those nursing homes, no, we can't accept the people that have COVID there. Keep them in the nursing home. We have to be ready for when the massive wave comes in. Only there was no massive wave. In fact, quite the opposite. So few people are going to the hospital, they now have to furlough workers. That's what happened. And so the opportunity is disgusting and aggravating and infuriating as all of it is. And I don't know if you can tell I'm a little upset about it. We stand to let people see with their own eyes what these tyrants are willing to do. They keep saying it's unprecedented. This is an unprecedented situation. Every situation's unprecedented. You don't think the founding fathers saw diseases? You don't think they saw all sorts of things? You don't think that life was far more perilous back then? Yet they still advocated for these rights. They were smart enough to know that situations that they couldn't foresee would come, whether it be a disease, whether it be climate change, whether it be airplanes dropping weapons and things like that they couldn't have pictured. But what they understood was this: we will give you the template for the most effective way to get through the majority of these decisions. And that template is the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. If you follow this, if you give people these rights and don't infringe on them, then it's not always perfect. It won't be that there won't be any pain. But at the end of the day, it will be better than if you infringe on them. They didn't say the Bill of Rights, unless there's a flu, unless there's a bad coronavirus, then the Bill of Rights don't count. They didn't say that. And of course, we'll be told it's not corruption. It was mistakes. The models were mistakes. I don't care anymore. I'm so sick and tired of this argument. I don't care. I'll concede. No one's corrupt ever. There's never been any corruption ever. Every time we could point to stuff like what the FBI did and what Obama's administration did and what the people making these models did, it's just gross incompetence. I don't care at this point. The outcome's the same, screwing over normal Americans. So get rid of them. All right, I've ranted and raved for a while. So good news for me, I took next week off work. So I got like 10 days in a row off. My wife also took it off. I was originally supposed to go to Myrtle Beach with my wife and her family, but Corona. So it'll be yard work time and maybe doing some more videos and things like that. But yeah, I'm excited. It'll be all right. Well, you want to come up? You want to say hi? Come on. I don't know if you can get up here now. Come on. My dog's thinking of coming up. Come on. Oh, you. Oh my goodness. This is Dorothy. She's young. She just turned 1 like a month ago. And my other dog, Annabelle, she turned 9. She's sitting on the couch looking at me like, is it time to eat? I'm with you, Annabelle. It will soon be time to eat. So yeah, things are going well for me. Thank you all for listening to me. I really appreciate it. Thank you for those that financially donate to me. I'm going to have some real exciting stuff coming up. In addition to doing that radio show, once this lockdown's lifted, I think we're shooting. I got to talk to Todd and Carlos. I think we're shooting for the night before the Republican convention. I'm going to be doing a 24-hour show live from there. And it will literally be me for 24 hours. Hopefully I'll have a different guest every hour, or you'll just hear me rant on a different subject every hour. But yeah, we're going to be doing that, which is one of the things that sets me apart. I am totally capable of just ranting for 24 hours. I could do it. Hopefully not repeating myself much as well. So yeah, look forward to that. If I could just make a quick pitch, if you could donate to me on Patreon, on PayPal. I don't know if any of my mods are here, if they could put the links to that up, but I don't have them on me now. That would be greatly appreciated. Or if you could just super chat me. look, first off, if you're tight with money, especially in this time, don't give any money. If I never get a dime from this show, I'll still do the show. That's not why I'm doing it. What I do need is things like this. So on my list of, originally I wanted a cool microphone that could go on my iPhone, and I got a program so then I could use it when I'm out at rallies or something to actually have good audio and video. But because of the virus, there's not a lot of that stuff going on. But still, that's something that I would want in the future. I need some sort of editing software, so I'll be able to do like things like thumbnails, better edits, things like that. And then I'll need a computer that could run it, because I don't know if the camera you can't see, but I'm just on an HP laptop here, which my wife was generous enough to get me a couple years ago, but it's got like no processing power to do anything. So I need a computer that could run that stuff. So that's what I'm trying to put back into the channel. Hopefully I'll get some experience with this radio show that'll probably be ran more professionally. But please check out that show. I think you'll see I'm still myself. This is who I am. I might yell a little less, but it's me. That's who I am. So check that out. The way you can help me if you don't want to donate money is please like and subscribe. Could you please share some of my videos I do, particularly the non-live videos? I don't know why I just don't get any attention on them. People tell me it's because YouTube's holding you back. That could be. I don't know. It might just be I'm not that interesting. But if you wanted to help me, I think those shorter videos could grab people's attention more than just listen to me ramble on for 2.5 hours like today. So if you wanted to help me, that's something that maybe you'd consider sharing on your social media. And then lastly, I'll be putting up here a video at some point this week discussing kind of the Twitter and the Facebook page for our radio show. It's Pennsylvania Patriot Radio, which again, 11 a.m. at this link every Saturday. Me, Carlos, and Todd. So check that out. It'll be there live. Sometimes we'll have call-in opportunities. You could call in, whatever. So, hopefully I'll have those pages up soon, that if you want to support me on there, you can as well. And remember, every Thursday night now, 10 p.m. Eastern, doing a video on Sarah Corrier's channel, which I'll do a video tomorrow and put a link up to her channel so you know exactly where to go. But other than that, that's ways you can help my channel. If you have anything to say to me, please don't hesitate to email. It's rob.nor@gmail.com. And, if you really want to help me, get out there and spread the message of freedom, why this lockdown's garbage. Spread this evidence of the coup that we see going on against Trump. Look, it sounds like it's two separate issues. And I hope that's what I got out there today. If I had one thing to get out there today, it's this. It sounds different, but all these issues are connected. And this corruption is so deep that it's not only just affecting this coup against Trump, it's also affecting the response to COVID. So thank you so much, everyone. I hope you all stay safe and have a great time. I'm humbled that any of you would choose to listen to me. I really am. It makes me feel awesome. I'm sorry I don't get to the comments as much because I'm ranting and raving. Hopefully, if I get enough subscribers and patrons and things of that nature, eventually I can actually afford to pay someone a modest salary to sit here and be sort of my editor, like my Jamie, like Joe Rogan has Jamie, someone to be like that. So we'll see what happens. So thank you so much, everyone. We'll talk to you all soon, and have a good one.